No, there we go. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Welcome to episode 19, Coast to Coast College Pregame Show. We finally made it to championship week. We've already crowned two champions last night. We will get into all that shortly. Well, let's introduce everybody first. First off, I'm your host, Uncle Shally. Cottrell can call me Daddy. Bill Shawcroft. And as always, in the top left, a little bit of a somber mood this morning. Still my brother. Still my Buckeye brother from another mother, Mr. Cottrell Simpson. How are you, sir?
I can't complain today. I've had a lot of week to get out, my sadness and all of that. I told you guys on Wednesday, I'm here with a reshifted focus. I'm looking ahead now. I'm looking towards the college football playoff and how we can salvage what happened last Saturday.
It looks like from the shrugs and the sighs that our last co-host, certainly not least, is not going to accept that reasoning or that statement. Mr. West Coast himself, Mr. I Black, Mr. Number One Oregon Ducks, Alex Elmore. How are you, sir?
Well, considering that I'm the only one of us to technically make it to championship weekend, I'm doing pretty dang good. Though, Bill, congratulations last week. That was a well-deserved, well-fought win. You have officially earned the right to be Cottrell's brother and his dad. So congratulations. I just want to throw that out there, Cottrell.
That's a little weird, but all right.
The only one of us to not win a game against the co-hosts this year. So that's pretty sad. But then again, it couldn't have happened to a better person. And all jokes aside, though, last weekend, great weekend of football. We got four fantastic, well, more than four, but we're going to talk about four fantastic games for today. Heisman Trophy races, is going to come to a close here soon. College football playoffs going to start. I'm excited. Let's get going. We got so much to talk about today.
We do. We have a ton to get into. Obviously, we're going to start with headlines as always. Then we got to do recaps from last week because some of them are important, obviously. We'll get into rankings, and then we're going to get right into breaking down all the championship games that are going to happen this afternoon and tonight. So we want to make sure we get through all of them. Eliminator has obviously changed. We have to get into that as well. So, Alex, breaking the huddle. Let's get going.
Shotgun. DC right. Flip 90. Dig. On the center. Ready?
Yeah. This just gets me pumped up, man. Remember Shane Falco leads me into battle. I just get pumped. All right, yeah, we just got some brief news to go over. And actually, on this one, I'm going to let kind of Cottrell, because he's kind of our films recruiting guy. Cottrell, you want to say anything major about National Signing Day? Obviously, it was a couple of days ago. Some big names, some big flips. What really jumps out at you? Because you're kind of the one that really updates me when new things happen in the signing game.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I mean, we had National Signing Day happen earlier this week, happened on Wednesday. And, just in general, I mean, this was a crazy cycle. You had a lot of high profile guys, ultimately flipped to schools. And we've kind of talked about some of them in previous shows as well. The Julian Lewis going from USC, going to Colorado, obviously Bryce Underwood going from LSU and then going to Michigan. And then actually on signing day, Oregon had a lot of, good recruits. There's a quarterback out of Hawaii who was originally committed to Cal and 5-star kid. And he ultimately flipped, ended up going to Oregon. Oregon had another 5-star flip as well. Naheem Alford going from Ohio State to actually signing with Oregon as well. So, I mean, you had a lot of big time names, flip on signing day itself there. I think it's absolutely wild. Of course, NIL played a major factor in this, but you only had one 5-star quarterback this entire cycle that didn't flip from his original commitment. And I think that kind of just lets you know, the state of where college football is at right now, where it's really not over until you ultimately put that pen to the paper and sign your name. And of course, we know how the portal works. We've seen guys, only be there for a semester and ultimately hit the portal and things like that. But it's just crazy to see how the landscape of college football's signing day is really, changing due a big part into how the NIL structure is right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest part to echo from what Cottrell said is, like he said, out of all the 5-star quarterbacks, there's only one that stayed committed to the college they actually committed to originally. That's crazy. That's mayhem. That is the state of college football now. I would say nothing's safe until you actually get these kids on campus.
True that.
It is there's just so much that can change, but that's the landscape now. And for better or worse, I would argue that it's for way, way, way worse, but that's where we're at now. I guess you look at it on the hindsight of it. I know we're gonna get into a second, but with the portal, I guess if you lose a kid, you could say you're never really out of it because, like Kachel mentioned as well, you've kids that are in the portal already that were on campus for barely a year, didn't play a snap, and there's a couple 4-star quarterbacks back in the portal already, and there's a couple more big names that are expected as well. So National Signing Day, I mean, obviously I was very happy, not even just with the Bryce thing. A lot of the kids that we were projected to flip, we did flip, and they all signed. We ended up with a top 5 or 6 class, depending on which ranking you use. So, right back in the thick of things. And I think it was a really, really good class, first class for Sherman Moore. So I'm overall very, very happy with where we're sitting right now.
Bill, honest question for you. If you guys would have lost to Ohio State last weekend, do you think you have as many signings this week, or do you think you might lose some?
I think there might have been 1 or 2 that maybe we don't get, but I would honestly tell you, I think Bryce signing was the catalyst for most of those kids deciding to go. Andrew Marsh was a kid that we already had in that we were projected to flip from Texas. But then we got 3 other wide receivers after Bryce, made it public that he was going to go to Michigan. The one kid was his teammate. He was supposed to go to Pitt, I think. He's now at Michigan. The other kid that he was really close to, Dotson, who he was going to go to LSU with him. He flipped pretty quick. So I would actually say Underwood had a bigger impact on all that than beating Ohio State. But beating Ohio State doesn't hurt on the backside of that to really confirm these kids that, hey, like, things are going in the right direction still. Like, everything, next year's going to be a way different year. We're coming in with possibly, one of the top 4 or 5 highest rated quarterbacks ever composite wise for ranking. So I gotta give Bryce his love there. I think it's more Bryce than anything else.
And I also think, I mean, obviously, what played a big part in the reason for Bryce flipping is Michigan's collective is able to compete with everybody else in the country. And I think when you're able to do that, and it's not a slight against Michigan, it's actually a compliment, honestly. Alex, of course, about it. I know about it, well as well. When you have big time brands, and I don't mean just like Nike or Jordan, for our school's sake, but you have these big time brands and you have these alumni who are willing to shell out whatever it takes. Obviously, on the Michigan side of things, you have Portnoy, and then the people that he ultimately gets involved to get in that. Oregon, you have Phil Knight. With Ohio State, we have the foundation where it's a whole bunch of alumni donors that just throw money into the pot there. It's really just turned college football into this space where, like I said before, it's really never over until it's over there. And of course, money doesn't always end up being the final line in the sand there, and ultimately what flips these recruits there. But it definitely plays a big part, especially if that means, hey, you can go to a big name brand and sign this deal with this school to make X amount of money, or in Naheem Alford's case, the corner that flipped to Oregon, Phil Knight said, hey, we're going to get you a shoe deal. And, ultimately it sounds like that's what really turned that tides there for him. So, I mean, I just think it's this thing now. We're in this space where college football has kind of turned into an arms race.
No, honestly, that's the best way to put that. I mean, whoever can kind of have the most bang for your buck, that's where someone's going to go. I mean, we were just talking last night, and this may be the perfect transition into the transfer portal. We were talking last night about Kansas's quarterback saying they reached a new deal to stay with university, and we were mocking, like, a new deal. You're in college, man. Like, you're supposed to get new deals in the NFL. This is college where you're getting education, you're learning systems, you're learning how to be a quarterback. But, like, a new deal is what keeps you at a university. So it's like, it's just funny that we're talking about these things and how it's kind of like, who has a bigger checkbook in this situation. And now, honestly, I think that segues us perfect into transfer portal. A lot of big names entered the transfer portal this week. Anybody kind of really jump out at you that really surprised you, or is there any like early predictions for who you might think may go to a school?
For me, it's really all the quarterbacks. You look at Connor Wegman, being
That's
in the
huge.
portal. You look at Noah Fafita from Arizona being in the portal. Like, these are guys that can come into your program right away and be a starter. And, you know, you saw the success that Kyle McCord had from just going in the portal. You saw the success that Cam Ward had going from Washington State going to Miami. And, you know, there's so many teams that Will Howard, Dylan Gabriel, like there's so many teams that utilize the portal that are ultimately going to make the college football playoff here. Obviously, we know Preston Stone, like we know what happened with Preston Stone, but like at SMU, look at Curtis Rourke in Indiana. Like, there's so many guys that came from the portal. Quinn Ewers at Texas, he was a portal guy. So that's just really where we are right now. And we see how it can change the landscape of college football.
Yeah. I mean, I think the days of, you know, like Michelle said, the days of college quarterbacks, you know, sitting on campus, you're like, all right, I'm gonna sit a year, maybe two, redshirt one of them, really learn the offense, and then compete my sophomore and junior year. Those days are over, man. Those days are over. These kids that are 4 or 5 star kids, they want to play right away. Connor Wegman is a great example. Played a little bit. Looks like for the most part he lost his job. He's like, cool, I'm out of here. I'm not even going to go through the hassle of coming back trying to compete. I'm just going to go somewhere where I know somebody's going to let me play. I think he kind of wants a fresh start too. In his defense, I mean, he's been through 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years, 2 head coaches. It's just a lot. I think he just wants to go somewhere fresh where he can just, you know, kind of turn the page and have a fresh sheet of paper and have a clean slate with a new coach and a new OC. And I think there's gonna be a lot of kids still that, you know, that are rumored that I think are going to end up hitting the portal. There's gonna be I think there's gonna be a couple other big names as well. You know,
I can give you 4 from our roster alone. Like our teams that are here, Oregon, Michigan, and Ohio State are going to have 4 total QBs hit the portal.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any of the QBs in the portal yet. I mean, we already have 5 kids in.
Okay, a running back just entered from you guys. Who was that? I know he didn't play much.
We have 2 running backs in.
Cole
Cabana. And that one kind of hurts me a little bit because I really wanted to see what he was going to be. His freshman year he was never going to play his freshman year, obviously with Corum and Donovan there. And then he was pretty much hurt he was banged up and nicked up all year this year. You know, and then that was kind of one of the reasons that Mullings was allowed to kind of, you know, got the reps that he did, and then obviously he started playing, and it was kind of no going back from there. Mm-hmm. And then Jordan Marshall, once he got healthy, I think they saw the writing on the wall that he's probably going to be RB1 next year, as he should be. He's another, you know, 4 or 5 star kid, depending on which rating system you look at. They had him returning kicks, and he got some run late in games towards the end of the year. So he will if he can stay healthy, he's a kid that has like 4.3 speed, a little bit undersized, but you know, if he goes to the right system where they're going to let him run, he could easily be a steal for somebody. I love that kid a lot. So I was a little sad about that one when I saw that one yesterday morning. But yeah, I mean, quarterback wise, yeah, we're definitely. I mean, I don't see how Orgy stays, but I don't know really where he necessarily thinks he's going to go and get a spot, I guess you could say. Because there's no way it's anybody but Jaden Davis or Underwood next year for us. So, you know, and I know Cottrell's quarterback room is even more crowded than ours. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, we have obviously Dante Moore in the waiting. We signed Akili Smith's son. I can't remember his first name. We just flipped a 3-star kid from Oregon State, and we signed that kid from Cal also. So it's like our quarterback room is set for the future, and I'm really excited about that. But as Cottrell said, who is it from Oregon do you think is going to enter the transfer portal?
I mean, it wasn't even necessarily that I thought it would be someone definitively, but I just think when you have a lot of quarterbacks, the writing is on the wall for some. Like, everybody can't play quarterback. It's not like you can go receiver and have the rotation and things like that. So obviously Dante Moore seems like he's going to be, you know, the starter for next year. And then, you know, flipping a 5-star kid, I mean, you'd have to imagine that he's going there on the hopes of being the starter post Dante Moore. So you figure if If you have any other, like if you're any other quarterback in that room, not saying you can't compete, because I love when kids compete for the spot, but if you're any other quarterback, you know, in that room, it's kind of like, hey, we kind of see how the writing on the wall is going to go here. Oregon already has their quarterback for at least the next 4 years, depending on what Dante Moore decides to do, because he could be the starter next year and go to the league, or he could say, hey, I want to come back for my senior year. And then that's 2 years with Moore. And then you have the 5-star kid who's right behind them, who can either be there at that point for, you know, 1 or 2 years. So it's like, hey, how long am I going to sit here on the bench behind these guys before I ultimately decide to move forward there? So it wasn't a specific name, but I just know, given situations, it makes a ton of sense for somebody to potentially leave that room there. Same kind of deal for us. I mean, you know, obviously Will Howard's a senior and he won't be there anymore. But when you sign Julian Sand from the portal, who was, you know, consensus top 2, top 3 quarterbacks in the entire class from last year, and then you sign another 5-star kid in Tavian St. Clair this year, it's like, hey, these other guys know for the next 2 to 4 years, there's not going to be room for me to be a starting quarterback at Ohio State. So I think that's when you see guys hit the portal. That I think Michigan's in that same boat there. That's why I think some of their guys hit the portal too.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference, like you said, competing and be like, all right, coming out of camp, you know, say Julian wins and St. Clair's named the backup. If you're that third guy, then that is, you know, you are like Chelsea, the writing's kind of on the wall. Then that is the situation where if somebody doesn't get hurt, you know, to where they're missing the rest of the year, you're not playing football next year. So those are the guys that automatically are like, all right, I gotta start looking at where I need to go, because the third string quarterback in college football is the last place you want to be. It is, you know, that is, like I said, you need something drastic to happen for you to start seeing playing time and get on the field. So that's when you see those batch of kids all start hitting. And again, like a lot of them will be 4 or 5-star kids that just never got the shot, you know, where they committed to first. So it's going to be interesting. The transfer portal will be, I think, will be just as exciting as signing day, because I think you're going to see a lot of big names hit it this year. I really do.
And before we move on here, I just kind of want to throw some other names out there, just because we have so many good, guys who I think have potential to be good quarterbacks. Caden Salter from Liberty, he's already shown that, like, what he can be as a quarterback. I think that could be a really interesting fit for teams moving forward. Miller Moss, we talked about Wegman already. Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma, you know, former 5-star in that same class as Malachi Nelson. Who went to Boise and ultimately became, you know, the backup there. Jackson Arnold hits the portal as well. Then you have other kids like Castellanos from Boston College. From Washington State, John Mateer, quarterback from there. Like, these are teams that are going to go to schools and be a starter somewhere else.
Well, Washington State damn near advertised for John Mateer. They were throwing out his stats like, this is our player of the year. Like, the dude had almost 3,000 passing yards and almost 1,000 rushing yards for a team that was supposed to underperform this year, and he took him to an 8-3 record. Like, this dude's going to get picked up. I'm not sure where or by who, but he's going to have an opportunity to shine next year, and he made the most of his opportunity at Washington State. And you also can't forget about guys like Kevin Conception on the wide receiver side from North Carolina State. You know, I didn't have a huge year this year, only 460 yards. That might be more on the offense than him. You know, and then you got guys like Keon Jenkins from FIU, who's a really an unheard name with 2,500 yards, 22 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. You know, that's another name that could make some waves, you know, stepping up to a bigger program. And then Ashton Daniels. That's who I'm excited to see where he goes from Stanford. He had a fantastic year this year. Obviously, Stanford, kind of an underperforming team, 1,700 yards passing. And like I said, he had more interceptions than touchdowns, but he has those raw materials to be a good quarterback, almost 700 rushing yards. So if he can go somewhere where someone can develop him, I think that's going to be a big game changing for someone. There's a lot of names. And like I said, next weekend, I think we can get maybe a list of some more kids that have entered, just so we can kind of go over them a little bit, you know, more in depth. But yeah, I think this is going to be a very exciting transfer portal.
It'll be fair.
You got a ton of kids that
it'll be fast and furious this week. I mean, once you hit probably even Sunday, but definitely when you hit Monday, you'll start seeing kids, you know, because like I said, the window, they're gonna want to get their names out there. They're fast and you know, and start talking to people. You know, you mentioned Jackson Arnold. That was a kid, you know, that Oklahoma decided to move on from Dylan Gabriel because he was going to be the heir apparent this year, and he's already one and done and does not want to be there. So that again, you just never know. You just never know. And it's and on top of that, we're just talking about quarterbacks, but there's already 3 or 4 5-star offensive linemen, 2 tackles that have entered the portal that have a ton of playing time that are going to be highly touted, to go somewhere and kind of be the last piece for a team. So there's going to, like you said, we'll have a list together for next week because we'll be able to spend a little bit more time on it after championship week, and then obviously previewing the playoff games. But between now and next Saturday, the list will be exponentially longer for sure.
I think that's it for the transfer portal. But last night we did have a couple conference championship games: Army, Tulane, Boise State, UNLV. Both some great games. Like I said, the largest margin of victory in the AAC championship game in history. Obviously, Boise State, Ashton Genty looking fantastic. Any initial reactions from last night? Did the games go how you expected? Was there any surprises?
For me, I think Boise came out and handled business like they had to. I thought they didn't try to overthink it. They didn't get too fancy. I think UNLV's offense, like we've kind of seen all year, is a little bit limited in what they can do. Their defense is great, and they kept them in that game as long as they could. But Boise came out running the ball really, really, really effectively to be in the game. Alshon broke that 75-yarder pretty early, and then it was just, for me, watching it, the writing was kind of on the wall. And like I said, UNLV was going to get out of what they wanted to do offensively to try to get back into it. It just wasn't going to work. Boise's defense played really well, and it was a really great send off, I think, for Gentry and his last case to or last effort to make his case for Heisman, and we'll see what happens. I think this is one of the most intriguing kind of debates you could have about that award that we've had in the last couple of years. And that's a good thing, because I think, unfortunately, like we've said on the show before, it's really become kind of a quarterback award. And I like that absolutely a quarterback is not going to win it this year. So, it's a very intriguing case, but again, he went out riding off in the sunset. Great game from him, great game from Boise, and they can sit back and relax now because they know 100% they're in the college football playoff tomorrow night. So where they get seeded, it's going to be very interesting for sure, obviously. But they're in. They did what they had to do. They debatably have the best loss in the country, and good for them. We all I think all 3 of us picked them at the beginning of the year. So.
Nope.
No. Who did?
Originally, before.
As soon as they started Maddox, Kurt Cottrell and I both switched.
Losers. But I picked them. But like I said, they take care of business. That is literally, it's not easy to lose your first game knowing, like, hey, even though we're the better team, there's still no room for slip up. We got to run this gauntlet. We got to beat everybody. And if we get to the end of the year, if we beat everybody between now and December, we'll make the college football playoff probably. And they did that. So you got to give them credit. So Boise State's in. Like I said, they're going to be the first one to really punch their ticket. And I can't wait for tomorrow night.
I'll tell you what, the Army-Tulane game did not go as expected. I thought Tulane was going to be able to move the ball up and down the field on that Army team. Army forced 2 early turnovers, an interception, and a fumble, going up 14-0 early. And man, Daly, dude, he's what set the record for AAC touchdowns in the season, getting to 28 yesterday after his 4th touchdown. They said the team, like I said, I constantly underestimated the Army team, and the only game that they ever truly lived up to that was, unfortunately, that Notre Dame game. But other than that, that team is going to cause some stirs, and hopefully they'll play in the bowl game. Hopefully they get a good matchup, because those kids definitely deserve it. But yeah, Boise State definitely punched their ticket, and I think that's from what we've seen in the season, they're definitely the best, the most deserving of the non-Power 4 schools. Anything else on the recaps last night before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the Saturday?
No, I mean, you were really hating on Army there, but for me, I feel like Tulane showed me everything that I needed to see last week against Memphis. Not saying Memphis is a bad football team, but I thought that exposed a lot for that Tulane team. So I'm not going to say I expected Army to win necessarily by the margin that they did, but I definitely thought Army was going to go in that game and dominate, and that's exactly what they did there. Go ahead.
I have a crazy hypothetical question. Obviously, it didn't happen, so it doesn't matter. But I just want to know what your thoughts were. If UNLV managed to beat Boise State last night, do you think Army's performance against Tulane would have made it an interesting selection for the committee between UNLV and Army, or do you think it was kind of a foregone conclusion that Boise State UNLV winner was going to go?
Do you want the controversial answer to that?
Always.
Well, I'll read it to you this way. Army's 11-1. They have one loss. Their loss is to
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is 11-1. Oh, sorry. Army is also a conference champion. Notre Dame is 11-1. Has a loss to who?
Northern Illinois.
Oh,
Northern Illinois.
Ball State. Always confuse those two.
Might as well be. What's the difference? And they don't have a conference championship. If you go by the letter of the law, there should have been a really interesting conversation about who gets in and who doesn't, and all that. But you're not going to get it.
They played head to head though, so that.
Oh, I'm fine with that. No, but his thing is, I don't think they get in. I think if Boise loses a close game last night, I don't think they get in over Boise either.
They would have got in over Boise. Wouldn't have been automatic at that point.
I still think they get in. I think Boise would have to drop a lot. It'll be interesting. Honestly, Alex, write this down because it'll be interesting to discuss tomorrow night when we come on here. Because I'll be really interested to see how much Army jumped up. So then we could at least looked at it and said, because Boise's 10th right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but it wouldn't have been if Boise. It's only if we're only having this discussion if Boise lost though.
I get it, but that was just hypothetical.
You're right. That's my hypothetical question. That if Army, the way they beat Tulane last night, was that enough to, do you think, jump UNLV?
I'm just saying, I want to see how much Army came up to then be like, if we look at Boise tonight, if they were 10th and they would have lost, how far do we think they would have fallen, and would Army have passed them? That's all I'm saying.
I'm saying they wouldn't have needed to pass Boise. They would have just needed to pass
UNLV. But UNLV was 20th.
20, and
Army was 24th.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is if they had beaten the Tulane the way they did last night by 21 points, was that enough to jump them?
Do they pass UNLV? Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
I mean, for me, I think that the answer is probably no, just because of how good that Boise team has been. And I think, if you beat that team and you look at it just from the flip side, it's like, all right, well, we've seen what Army can do against the big schools. Like we saw what they look like against Notre Dame. Do we really want to slide them into that 12 spot when most likely it's just going to be a rematch against Notre Dame? Notre Dame is damn near locked into that 5 spot. Like Oregon loses, Notre Dame is locked into that 5 spot. So,
see, that'll be fun because if Penn State keeps it close, I don't think you will. Right?
See,
that Northern Illinois loss is going to. Penn State's only losses to Ohio State and Oregon would absolutely trounce Notre Dame's one loss to Northern Illinois.
But they've
already shown you that the loss column doesn't matter. They've already shown it to you.
I agree. I understand what you're saying, but here's my thing. I think, and we're going to get into this, I'm sure we are, but just because we're here, I think if Penn State loses, depending on what the score is, Penn State loses that game, they're going to fall below Notre Dame and Ohio State.
I don't know. I think that's going to be an interesting conversation we're going to have Sunday because I think if Penn State loses on a walk-off field goal or something like that, I don't know. Because, again, you have to, they keep talking about all these data points. They have to get credit for making the championship game that Notre Dame obviously isn't going to and Ohio State did not. So then you for the Ohio State argument, I get it. Ohio State beat them head-to-head. And then it becomes what holds weight more? Does the head-to-head victory hold weight more, or does it making it to your conference championship game matter more? That'll be the interesting debate. For me, they both should be ahead of Notre Dame. So I don't agree with you that Notre Dame's locked into 5 because I don't think Notre Dame's done anything to be locked into 5 other than just beating a bunch of, for the most part, crappy teams. And now the top 12, they have the worst loss. So I don't think they've done anything to solidify being the 5 seed. So,
but I don't think that's the discussion though. I don't think it's about. I agree that it should be, but that it's not though. Notre Dame can't be sitting where they are right now, and then all of a sudden the committee's going to say, Well, you know what? You guys did lose Northern Illinois. You know, you guys, your resume doesn't really line up against the Penn States, the Ohio States, the, you know, Texas or Georgia, depending on who loses that game. They're not going to just slot them down, you know, all of a sudden.
I'm
that's
not
what
going
I'm
to say
saying.
they're going to move to 10th,
where they're at.
But I think they can go from 5th to 7th.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like I think Notre Dame is sitting there as
if Texas loses today, Texas will be ahead of Notre Dame. I think if Penn State loses today, they'll be ahead of Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame does drop.
I disagree with both of those.
Texas, I won't give you because, again, I think once Texas gets that second loss, me and Cottrell have been consistent about this. Once they get that second loss, you really have to look at their resume, what it is and what it's not. And honestly, I don't as bad as Notre Dame's is probably better than Texas's is. So, you know, I think it's going to be, again, they're seeded right now based upon what's happened so far. So that's why I don't think anybody's locked into anything per se as seedings, because depending on what happens later this afternoon or tonight, things could change. Like you said, if Penn State somehow upsets Oregon, there's no way Oregon. Yeah. There's no way Oregon's dropping. But I'm saying below Notre Dame.
That's the only thing that I think can happen to get Notre Dame out of 5.
I think we'll see. I think it's going to be interesting. Like I said, I think a lot of it's going to depend on how the game goes and what Penn State looks like. I think if you could say one thing is, I think everybody has a fairly comfortable idea of what Oregon is, and I would say I think they're the only team that you can kind of say that about right now. As in, I think we've seen the ceilings of, like, I know what Ohio State can be, but then you throw in the Michigan game, it's like, all right, well, I didn't think they had that in them, so that's looming out there. I think we have an idea of what Texas looks like against kind of substandard teams, but then, you know, they played one really good team at home and got their doors blown off. So it's like, you know, I think depending on what happens today and how teams look, like if we find out, you know, Penn State lost to Ohio State by 6? What was the final score of that game? 6?
It was 20 or 7. Yeah, 6 or 7. I think it was 2013.
So, okay, yeah. So we know they're really good. We know they can stay on the field against Ohio State. If they look like that again today against Oregon, I don't think you could then tell me that if I'm comparing Penn State to Notre Dame, that you're telling me Notre Dame's a better football team, because you're not. You're not going to convince me. Who did Notre Dame play? I mean, it's still going to be the end all be all when it's all said and done. If you want to go Texas A&M, that's fine, but you put Penn State or Ohio State on a neutral field with Texas A&M. I'm taking both Big Ten teams. So it's. I'm not saying you're wrong that they're not going to end up there. I'm just saying I don't think anything's set in stone. I think that discussion is going to happen. I think if Penn State plays really well tonight and they give Oregon a scare, I think there's a chance Penn State only falls down to 5 or 6. I still think there's a chance Ohio State jumps them. Notre Dame, just for me, just doesn't have anything out there that shouts, we're 5 and we're staying here, and we're only 5 because we don't have a conference championship game. We should be top 4.
Like, we're 5 and we're here.
Yeah, like it's just they don't have any claim to that for me, and they just don't. And it's like, again, if
Notre Dame gets passed by Ohio State. Like, I don't think that's. If they were going to do that, they should have did it, you know, last week, because there's nothing to change that. And I think for the schedule comparison,
I disagree.
What's changed? What's changed from last week to this week for Ohio State and Notre Dame?
Penn State beats Oregon tonight. What does that make? What does that make Ohio State's win?
The number 1 or number 2 team in the country.
Correct. So now you have a loss to that number 1 team in the country on the road by a point, and you now have a win on the number 1 or number 2 team's country home field.
Big Ten
champions field, which is highly regarded, number 1 or number 2 hostile places to go. So don't tell me it can't change, brother. Don't.
Penn State was number 3 when they played them.
No, but what he's saying is that, like,
I get it. Their resume changed.
Correct. Well, that's what I'm saying. Ohio State's resume looks a lot better.
We've already known Penn State was a good football team, though. It's not like they went from 21 then to 3 and now won the Big Ten.
When you beat them 20-14, though, you didn't think Penn State was possibly going to be Big Ten champion, did you? Because that's where we're at now.
I mean, no.
Your resume gets better.
I
can't believe I'm arguing for Ohio State here, and you're like shooting me down. Because I'll tell you this.
Because I'm being realistic here.
Your
We're
resume,
locked into 6 or 7.
your resume looks better. And then I'll even offer you this: your loss against Michigan is still way better than their loss to Northern Illinois. So I'm just saying.
I look. We talk about schedules with everybody else. I think Penn State is also in the same boat as Notre Dame and Indiana. Granted, playing Oregon today definitely helps that. Like it'll help that immensely.
And
But
that's Notre
looking
Dame's
at the
fault for not joining the conference, dude.
but looking at the regular season though, like Penn State's only ranked win the entire season is against Illinois, who some might debate shouldn't be ranked right now. I mean,
I don't disagree with your sentiment, but I don't want to hear it with what's been going on at the bottom of this
You're right. You're right with the SEC. You're right.
Correct. So I don't want to hear it. So you know what? Penn State's getting Illinois. They're getting all of it, and they're taking it to the bank every day because they deserve it just as much as like Illinois would destroy Missouri on a neutral field. Would destroy Missouri. Missouri's trash. They're 19th in the country right now. They haven't beaten anybody. I don't think they beat anybody in Division I. Like they're terrible. And they keep going up in the rankings. Why? Because it helps Alabama. Because it helps so and so. It's so annoying. Let's go. Go put the rankings up. I'm already getting pissed off.
All right, let's get them up.
All right. So I mean, I think just looking at these rankings here, like I think it's going to be interesting to see if the top holds serve. Like meaning you see an Oregon win and you see a Texas win. What does that mean for Penn State and Georgia? Because I think that's when we really start to see a shift in the rankings there. Honestly, vice versa as well. Like I'd love to see how far Texas falls with Oregon, with an Oregon loss. I mean, I think we can all agree that they'd be locked into 5 at that point. So there's really not much, confusion there or debate about where they would go in that situation. But I think the matchups really matter in this to me because I think we have a potential to see a lot of repeat matchups in the first round. And I think if the committee was smart, they would, I don't want to say you based your seeds on that, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to see Georgia versus Alabama in the first round. I wouldn't want to see Ohio State versus Penn State or Ohio State versus Indiana in the first round. So I think the committee should be smart with how they go about the seedings to give us different matchups. But I'm ultimately going to be curious about what their mindset is with that.
I'm going to disagree with that. They've already said they're not going to avoid it because they think, like, again, if Indiana ends up being 11th and there's a Big Ten team in the 6th seed, that's just what's going to be. Yeah. And I agree with that. You can't start manipulating it even more than they already are. I'm really curious. I mean, obviously Boise's going to jump now. They are a conference champion. They're going to go ahead of Indiana. So in my opinion, they're no worse than 9 right now.
We can also get a look at how it would look right now as well. So as of now, like with the seedings and everything, this is what it looks like as is. Boise with the potential to move up to 3, depending on what happens in that ACC championship game.
Yeah, man, it's wild. I hate to say, man, there's just a lot of not good football games here.
Facts.
Penn State's going to murder Arizona State. Ohio State's going to murder Tennessee. Georgia's going to murder Indiana. Notre Dame, Alabama, I guess, is the best game, and I don't even know why I hate saying that. But then, on a neutral field, I realistically can't take Boise over Penn State. And then I hate that Oregon, Ohio State is then becoming a quarterfinal game, which sucks. You're going to get Texas, Georgia again, which will be a quarterfinal game, which will suck. And then SMU plays, I think SMU beats either one of those teams. So I guess the hindsight, the bright spot is here. We potentially have the media, the kind of underdog darling in SMU making the Final Four. But then you get Texas, probably Penn State, and then you're sending Oregon or Ohio State home already, which sucks for me. But again, I think they're going to change because again, I don't know how you could possibly justify keeping Indiana ahead of Boise State now. And I would, if you go back to the other graphic, I would argue they should be up ahead of all those other people. I I guess they can't pass SMU yet, because if you think SMU is better than them now and SMU wins tonight, then they have to stay ahead of them.
Tennessee could fall though.
They should. I'm again. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like I like, if you're asking me right now, like it should be Ohio State 6, SMU 7, and Boise 8. That's where I'm at. And everybody else can hang on for dear life, and that's their own fault. That's what you get for losing and having 3 losses and everything else. Georgia being. See, this is where it gets interesting for me, because and Cottrell, you kind of touched on this. I mean, if Penn State loses and Georgia both loses, like how far does Georgia fall? Because Penn State has to stay ahead of them. They both have the same resume at that point, and you already have them 2 spots ahead. So where does Georgia fall? Like they can't fall in front of, like, if you want to put them in front of Indiana, fine. Again, you have that extra data point. They made the conference championship game. Again, you're telling me then 3 losses to 1 doesn't matter, which drives me bananas, because if you're telling me Indiana's resume, which I think sucks, but if you're telling me that they're 9 and they only have 1 loss, and that 1 loss matters, and that keeps them in the 9 spot, and they're in theory safe to make this playoff unless lunacy happens tonight, then Georgia with 3 losses has to drop behind them, do they not?
I mean, I think
how are you going to justify putting Georgia in front of Indiana? If you're telling me that Indiana is undoubtedly a playoff team, which they've done because they kept them out of the 11 and 12 spots where they could get pushed out. They are a non-conference championship game participant, and they have 1 loss. They have 1 loss to the only really good team they played, which is fine, which is ranked ahead of them, which, based on head-to-head. But that being said, you've positioned them to really not be on the bubble. Like, that's Alabama, that's Miami. Like, those teams need everything to still go right tonight to get in. So you're telling me that, to your point, like, what changed from last week to this week? So they've told us that Indiana is safely in this playoff. We agree with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
So how do you possibly put Georgia in front of them if Georgia loses tonight? Wouldn't Georgia have to be down in that battle for 11 and 12 with Bama and Miami then?
I don't think they necessarily are that. They don't go that far, because I don't think they're going to put in a Miami team because Georgia lost the number 2 team in the country. Not saying that shouldn't be the argument there, but
no, you want to put Georgia in over Miami. I still think it's crap, but you can at least make that argument. Like, that's a fair argument. I think Georgia and Miami should both be in over Alabama, but my point is, you can't. How do you drop them to 8 and keep them and put them in front of either SMU, Indiana, or Boise, who are at that point are both? I mean, Boise's already a conference champion. SMU has the potential to be. So it's like, and again, then you still have Tennessee sitting there at 7 and done nothing and been there. They're literally the kid that like stole something in class, and like they're pointing at everybody else, and he's just sitting there being quiet, and nobody's paying any attention to him. Like, they have no reason to be there. Like, none. I mean, just sitting there.
I don't disagree with you there. I mean, I just think I'm looking at this and how I see it falling. Alex, definitely wants you to chime in too with it, but Oregon,
let's go. Get here, mix it up. Let's go.
Oregon at 1. You get Texas at 2. I do think.
All right, let's do this.
If favorites win win today. The favorites win.
That's what I said. Let's do this. Oregon wins tonight. Oregon wins a close game. Texas wins a close game. Boise's already in the clubhouse. SMU wins a close game, and
whoever Big 12 doesn't matter because they're locked in.
Okay, fair, fine.
They're locked in the 12.
Okay, so let's do it that way. We'll go Oregon, Texas wins, SMU wins, Boise already wins, and then Big 12. I don't think matters.
Big 12 is 12. Big 12 is 12.
Fair. All right, let's do that. Let's do this then. Let's do that.
In my mind here, I think you'd be looking at number 1, and I'm going by seeds based on playoff rankings. So like how they would seed it, not this. I'm going
how we actually end up tomorrow night. Correct.
What this would look like. So
correct.
For me, I think you'd have Oregon obviously on the 1 line, you'd have Texas on the 2 line, SMU still on that 3 line, and then Boise at the 4 line. Nothing changes there. I think you'd be looking at Notre Dame over on the 5 line. I think you'd be looking at Ohio State on the 6 line. You'd be looking at Penn State on the 7 line. And I think the last home game goes to Georgia. I know.
That cannot happen. That cannot happen. There's no way Georgia can get a home game. None.
I know.
I mean, they already have a home game today, pretty much.
I know, but I'm saying
Facts.
that's how I think it shakes out. I think you end up with Georgia getting that last spot for their home playoff game.
So you're knocking Tennessee from 7 to down to like 9 or 10 then.
Yes. I think they have already come out and told you that they value these conference championships in such high regard. And we're going to look at it as lunacy because we're going to look at it as how the hell does Ohio State jump Penn State and they played in that game? The committee is going to justify that by saying, well, these two teams played head to head. So
didn't Tennessee and Georgia play though?
No.
They had to have.
Think so, and if they did, that means Georgia won. If that was the case,
I'm checking right now. Georgia,
but
Tennessee lost to.
No, they played Tennessee. Oh yeah, they did. They beat Tennessee 31-17.
Yeah, so they would justify it. They would justify it with head to head. So Georgia would be on the 8 line for me. Then I think you'd be looking at Tennessee on the 9 line. Indiana be at 10. Your number 11 will be Alabama. And then your number 12 be the Big 12 champion.
I think Alabama's got to be 12 then, if that's what we're doing.
No, they're not falling behind the Big 12 champion.
I mean, how does Arizona State, if they win today, or
if they win a conference championship, how are they not ahead of Alabama?
Arizona State's the only team that can jump Alabama at 15 right now, and I think they would have to win pretty soundly. Again, Iowa State is no schluck, and you a 10-1 team. I think they would have to beat them by 3 scores to jump enough to jump Alabama. I think they would have to handle business today pretty handedly for the committee to put them over Alabama.
I don't think they're jumping Bama.
I don't know how. I mean, they're both again.
Bill, we saw a undefeated conference champion get left out of the college football playoff last year.
Don't
bring logic into this.
Can't do it again.
Don't bring logic into this.
I had health issues after that. Listen, you can't lay out these data points and all right. If you're telling me that in your opinion, Georgia and Alabama's 3-loss teams are better than some other 2-loss teams, and you want them to get in, that is fine. They cannot be ahead again. If you're comparing, there's going to be no head-to-head there. There's going to be no head-to-head. So, again, you're going to go to the last data points, which are one of these teams a conference championship participant? One is, one isn't. Is one a conference seed champion or a conference champion? Yes, one is, one isn't. This is like basketball. Like, if you're going to be the 2 last at-large teams, then you're telling me they're the best 2 3-loss teams that don't have any kind of championship hardware to shake at. There's no way you're telling me that if you win the Big 12 and you're a conference champion and you both have, again, if you put them on paper, they both have 3 losses. Cool. Okay, perfect. They didn't play head-to-head, obviously. One's a conference champion, one is not. How do you possibly get ranked in front of a conference champion with 3 losses? This isn't a 12-1 Alabama team. Like, that's not what we're talking about. Then I'm like, all right, Alabama lost to Georgia, and that's the reason they didn't make the championship game. But they have 4 other ranked wins, and they have no bad losses, which isn't true. They're 9-3.
For what it's worth, Bill, I would welcome that. Like, I would love for that Big 12, because in my scenario, I'd be looking at Ohio State versus the Big 12 champion. I would love that. Like, I'd much rather see the Big 12 champion than to see Alabama. Not that I'm afraid of either one. I think whoever sees Alabama, one of those top seeds at home, I think they take care of business against them. But I mean, if you ask me who I'd rather see, it's the Big 12 team. So I hope your scenario happens. I just don't think, with the bias that we've seen with the committee already showing, Bama has no business being in right now as we're talking about it. It should be Miami. If we're being completely honest with ourselves, everything's being equal there. They have 2 losses. One of them was against Georgia Tech, who we've seen take Georgia to the brink there, and then the other was against Syracuse in the last game of the year. So, not saying Syracuse is like that's not a bad loss.
An 8-4 team.
They should have won, but that's not a bad loss. losing to Oklahoma, a 6-6 Oklahoma team, that's a bad loss. So, I mean,
getting dismantled by
not
a
even
bad
scoring
Oklahoma
double
team.
digits.
Not even
against
scoring a
Oklahoma.
touchdown. They lost
Correct.
28-3. There's no way that can prevail over a conference champion.
I agree.
But
this is what they're already showing you.
See,
Bama being on the 11 line is already what they're showing you. Like,
no.
They can pick and choose what they want to value.
I think they can still bump. No. See, read between the lines of what that really is. That is them showing you that if we have to move Arizona State, that there's going to be a fail-safe behind them, and Miami is going to be the team that gets shafted. That's what they showed you. That's what they're showing you, that if Arizona State wins and we have to bump them and they're going to be a conference champion, and say we bump them to 10 or bump them to 9 and everybody falls back one, that Alabama's not the one walking the plank. Miami's going to be. That's what they showed you.
Miami's already walking the plank. I think.
Agreed. But that gave them the buffer with Alabama, because it gave them the buffer for people like me that are going to scream to high hell tomorrow that if they somehow rank them above them, but you know what? We can still put Alabama in. We'll bump them back to 12. They'll still get in. All the SEC, dick riders will be happy, and they'll get in, and they're going to have to go to wherever they're going to have to go to. But we still put our Big 12 champion in like we said we're going to, and they have a conference champion, so they have to be in front of. Honestly, Arizona State should be no lower than 10 for me, if I'm being 100% honest. And honestly, if I'm being completely honest, they should be 9. There's no way Indiana should be ranked ahead of them either.
Well, honestly, there's a few things that need to be changed in the college football playoff. Obviously, a bunch of stuff has been kind of mentioned versus like reseeding once the playoff starts. Also, I personally believe that a conference champion, a Big Four conference champion, shouldn't be lower than 5. Like, I get Boise State being ranked above Arizona State and them getting a top 4, but that 5th conference champion should get that 5 seed in a home game, not that 12th seed. That's where I stand, though, in my opinion, as far as if you conference champion valuing that conference championship.
I don't dislike that. I would say this. I would be more happy if I said
they get I'd say in this situation,
they're guaranteed
8.
A home game.
Yeah, they get no lower than 8.
Correct. Okay. I would be fine with that. And the reseeding thing, I think is going to happen because it's already kind of brought up. Like, again, like
if you're looking at this,
if you're looking at this right now, you'd rather be Penn State than Oregon.
Correct. 100%.
You're going to see it when they redo this in 4 years. They're going to say, "Hey, we're going to play the first round, and then we're going to reseed it, and one's going to play who's ever left." And
I don't know if it takes that long. I think you may get an uproar from one of these big schools, depending on what happens.
I think everything's locked in for 4 years. I don't think they can change it. That was the gist of what I got from what I read.
In terms of like teams and stuff, they can change whatever the hell they want. They can make emergency injunctions and change things if they need. Not right now in season, but I mean,
I don't think they can. That's what I'm saying. Like, based upon what I read, because they kept saying 2028, and like the one big thing that's already come up already numerous times is that inside the room is that they think they should have to reseed. So I could be wrong. The guy who wrote it could be wrong, and maybe there is language where if they feel like they have to change something like this, they can if they consider it, like you said, like an emergency type of thing. But if not, I don't think it can be changed for the first 4 years.
I'm just saying they got people in high powers that can, if it absolutely comes down to it. I think as is, my adage is to be a champion, you're going to have to beat somebody anyway. Now, of course, as a 1 seed, you deserve the easiest road to that championship. You've earned that. As a 2 seed, you've earned the second easiest road throughout. So, like, I understand like where everybody's coming from with that. But I just think it's going to suck for a team. And granted, even if Oregon wins their second game, against Ohio State or Tennessee, or even if Boise, comes out of there on that 4 line, like, I think you're still having these sorts of issues because Oregon facing Ohio State again, and then potentially seeing like, Penn State in that semis or Boise there. Those are going to be 2 completely different battle tested teams there, like in that game. So,
yeah. I mean, if this is what we really had, I mean, out of the top 4 seeds, SMU has the easiest road.
Yeah.
Like
which is
that's
wild.
crazy. That's crazy. So, it's going to be, listen, what time is tomorrow? Is it 7 or is it 8?
I think it's 8.
It's 7. Is it 7?
Is it weird that I think Boise State actually has the easiest route I think with Ashton Genty in that run game, I think.
Oh, brother.
Okay, you know what? Fine, whatever. We'll talk about that when it's official tomorrow night. I'm just saying.
Listen, I'll say this. I'll say this. And we've talked a lot about South Carolina the last couple of weeks with hot as they are. Arizona State is just as hot as South Carolina is.
Can we get to
lost the game
previews?
in
I'm so pumped.
Only reason why I said brother is because you have Boise State's only loss is obviously Oregon, and I know
game
we're
had
getting
me
to
terrified.
And
if
I know we're getting to the Big Ten championship game here, but I mean I think that's just a show of Alex saying he thinks that Oregon's going to dominate tonight, which is fine. Like it's 100% okay to have that thought, but like Boise having the easiest road here, like I think regardless of what we think about Penn State or Arizona State,
they're getting a battle either way in that game, bro.
Agreed. And I think SMU, Notre Dame, and Alabama have shown you nothing all season that said that you'd be worried about them beating SMU.
There's nothing more. The problem is this is not what we're going to get because this is going to change, obviously.
For sure.
There is nothing more than I would love for Notre Dame to beat Alabama, which I actually think would happen. And their fans would be to the moon with confidence going into the SMU game. And to watch SMU smack them, it would make my year. It would probably make me more happy than what happened last weekend. I'm telling you, because that's all I've heard all day. Oh, well, this is going to be our year, and then we'll be more relevant to you because we won the national championship, more recent than you have. I was like, okay, like you guys stink, but it's fine if you think you won the national championship. Because that's what their fans do. They're Notre Dame is the Dallas Cowboys of college football. That's who they are. Every single freaking year, it's, we got a quarterback this year. We're going to win. We're going to win. We're just better than everybody. We're going to win. There'd be nothing better than on a neutral field for SMU to beat them by like 17 points. Everybody that liked Notre Dame would unfriend me. It would be magic.
Alex, how do you see the seeds going though? Before we move on, because we kind of had a lot of discussions there about it. How do you see?
Yeah, I think
things
it's
shaking
pretty...
out, given the scenario that we said all four.
Well, right. Oregon, Texas, SMU, and you said Arizona State wins.
Either one. Either Big 12.
Matters.
Either Big 12.
Yeah, I think obviously Oregon's locked in at the 1. Texas definitely takes care of business, stays at the 2. SMU 3. Boise State 4. I think we then go. Penn State's got to go 5. I think that Ohio State also goes above Notre Dame to 6. Like Notre Dame drops to 7. I think. Let me see who would be the 8. I think that would put who would be at 8? So that would be Tennessee at 8. So Tennessee would no, because Notre Dame would drop to 7. I don't know. There's a lot of like moving pieces in my brain right now, and I'm not seeing everything how I think it's going to lock out. But
put the other one back up.
Which one? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's easier to.
There we go. Okay, cool.
Move stuff around.
Yeah. So I would just put Oregon, Texas, was it SMU, Boise State. And then I think if Penn State keeps it close, like Bill said in this scenario, Penn State keeps it close, I don't think you can put Penn State lower than 5. Being in the conference championship game, losing to a number 1 team and the number 2 team at the time by probably combined, say, 10 points. Let's say you got to put them at 5. Georgia loses, which I think drops them down to 10, 11. I think they actually drop behind Alabama. And then so you move Bama up to 10, Boise State up to 9, Indiana up to 8, Tennessee at 7, Ohio, Notre Dame. Yeah,
so who's your 12 then?
12 would be Arizona State or Iowa State. I know, Bill. I know it's not what you're hoping to hear, but unfortunately, with the bias, I don't see Alabama going anywhere but up if they move at all.
Correct. I agree with that.
And
but see, that means how can Alabama possibly move up today?
Look,
they're not playing.
Bill, just like Control said, you are talking rationally. Okay. I almost said BCS. Jeez, the College Football Playoff Committee has shown that their bias kind of takes precedent. All right. ESPN sponsors the SEC. There's a lot of money involved in this. The more SEC schools involved in this, the more money is going around. So there is money involved behind every single decision. And
I hate that shit because everybody's going to watch every one of these games, no matter who's in it.
Like I agree with you.
I'm
just saying how it's going to be.
Guess
I'm not
what?
saying that's right.
Let me break this down for you. Guess what was the most watched football game of the season again this year?
I know, Michigan, Ohio State, and guess what?
And Michigan sucked, and still everybody watched it. So don't tell me like if Arizona State gets in instead of Alabama, that whoever Arizona State's playing, nobody's going to watch that football game. It's just a lie. It's just a lie.
No, they are.
I'm just saying that I think Bama has the potential to move today because if Georgia also loses today, I think then it gets real interesting because both of those teams are going to be sitting at three losses, and Bama has the head-to-head over Georgia.
Okay, so Georgia's 12. Bama's 11, Arizona State's 10.
There's not a fucking snowball's chance in hell that
stop cursing on my PG show.
They go up to 10. Not a shot.
I just don't know how you reward I just don't know how you go, okay, we'll go 10, 11, 12.
You don't know?
They all have 3 losses. One of them is a conference champion. The other 2 are not. And then but we're gonna make the team that actually won their conference. We're gonna put them lower than the other 2 guys. The one team didn't even freaking go, and the other team went and lost. So if you want to argue over semantics with Georgia and Alabama at 11-12, go ahead. Like one beat one head to head, but the other one made it to the conference championship game. So if you want to argue what's more important between those 2, feel free, fight amongst yourselves, SEC fans. But they should be 11-12. There's no way either one of those teams should be ranked ahead of Arizona State. None. It should go Oregon, Texas, SMU, Boise. I think 5, 6, 7 is interesting. I will go. You know, I'm strictly going off eye test and what I think they are. Again, I think Penn State and Ohio State should be 5, 6 in some kind of order because I think they're both better than Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. I think making your conference championship game matters. For that reason alone, I'll put Penn State 5. Ohio State stays at 6. I'll put Notre Dame 7. I will put Tennessee 8. How Indiana survives at 9 is beyond me. Actually, you know what? I'm not even doing that. Tennessee's 8. Arizona State's 9. Indiana's 10.
Indiana should 9. Okay.
If you're telling me Alabama can move up with not even winning and not even playing today, how does a conference champion not move up? And honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I think Indiana should be 12. But we're not getting back into Indiana again. I'm tired of talking about Indiana.
I'm just saying, I saw the number 15 team last week take care of business against number 12, and they moved up 1 spot. So 15 beating 16 or 16 beating 15. I just don't see that movement happening. Conference championship aside, I mean, I just don't think that they care.
I might have a heart attack on air tomorrow night. It's just I already know this is going to bother me. I have anxiety about it already.
Well, gentlemen, are we ready to get into some previews then?
Excuse me, what? Do we skip recaps?
Oh, I mean, you guys been talking about previews. We can go. Yeah, we go back to recaps.
Right.
Listen, don't try to be Gene. Don't try to be Gene. Like when Penn State finally loses,
Alex
and then he's just like, we don't even talk about it.
Alex asked it. We went over some recaps already. I mean,
boys, we already talked about.
We'll give you. Now we already talked about it. We
talked about boys. You know me already.
Let's just talk about Michigan, Ohio State. And,
make Bill happy.
And Cottrell said,
"Listen, this is my only 5 minutes to shine this year. It's been a rough year for the champs."
That's true. And Bill, before you get started, if it makes you feel any better, the second I jumped on air with Cottrell this morning, he was like, "I'm a little sad I'm not playing you guys today." And then I said, "Shouldn't have choked." So you weren't here on the show, you didn't hear that, but he's sad today. Cottrell may not be showing it. He's he's got some energy. He's argumentative today. I love it. I can
neither confirm nor deny that happened.
No, listen. I'm gonna be 100% honest. I've had a lot of people text me. Gene is still longing for the throw down, like insult each other's mothers, like argument between me and Cottrell. This is why this doesn't happen between the two of us with these teams, and I'll tell you why. I consider myself to be very realistic and level-headed and honest with what Michigan is. Cottrell is also along the same lines. Like, we're both very, very passionate about both our schools, but we're very realistic and unbiased, about what they are and what they're not. Like, Cottrell's not going to come on here and make 8 excuses for why they lost Saturday, other than they just didn't play well and everything else. Like same reason, like like I said last week, like me watch like it. I didn't even enjoy watching the game last week because I was just literally like
When's the fuck up gonna happen?
Exactly. I was like, I know it's coming. It's gonna come. It's gonna come.
It came, but we didn't capitalize.
It did. And then we threw to Jack Sawyer, and I literally looked at Liz. I was like, there it fucking is. I was like, I'm 42 minutes into this game, and now it's gonna happen. And I'm like, and I look around, I was like, we're gonna lose by 20. And she's like, no, we're not. I'm like, we're gonna lose by 20. I'm like, I'm telling you, that was the rock that fell off the dam, and now it burst. This is gonna get out of control. And then again, yeah, correct. So that's why I just always like, I feel like a lot of people expect fireworks, and maybe one day it'll happen. Like maybe it will, but like it's not going to happen this week. I'm going to tell you point blank, we got lucky, and for the two times that we really needed to execute, we did. I'm not even going to go into like. I will say this. I went back and watched the episode of this show when Ohio State hired Chip Kelly. And I said something then, and I think it's even more prevalent now. I told Cottrell, I said, I think it's a mistake to let that snake in. I said, I don't trust the guy. I have experience with him here at Philly. I hated everything about it. Doesn't coach well in big games.
I say that's a lie. That's
That
Oregon. That was Oregon Duck fan. I say that's a lie.
No.
Okay, continue.
To Cottrell's point, he was a little. I would say I think the term you used was cautiously optimistic. I think was the term Cottrell used. But again, I said conspiracy guy. I said there's a part of me that thinks Chip will kind of lose this game to try to get Ryan Day out of there so he can become head coach. Not saying that's what happened, but I'm saying if you look at that game from 30,000 feet. And you have no feelings in it, certain things that were called and certain things that were done in that game make zero sense. And I think you would agree with that. I don't understand. Like, I understand what's happened in the last 3 years. And I understand all the tough talk and all this and all that. The fact that played into their play calling and the way they tried to win this game when it was clearly not working is befuddling to me. You literally decided to take your two great running backs and run them at Michigan. Honestly, at that point, Michigan's four best players on the field, our two linebackers and our two soon-to-be top 10 defensive tackle picks in the NFL. No Will Johnson. Will Johnson did not play Saturday. So the best cornerback in America is not on the field. And you have debatably two of the top 5 wide receivers of college football, and we're not throwing the ball out to them in space to make plays. It's mind-boggling to me. Instead, let's just keep running Travion Henderson at Mason Graham and see what happens. Yeah, like Travion's going to win a couple times, and he's going to get like 2 or 3 yards. But Mason Graham's also going to tackle him behind the line a couple times. Like, that's a net gain of nothing. I just didn't understand it. I think Will Howard, you guys have gone back and forth. I've kind of been in between on him. I think he's better than what Alex thinks he is. I don't
Kyle
think
McCord is better.
You guys can get into that. I kind of fall on the same side of Alex on that one. I didn't think he was as good as Cottrell thought he was. I think obviously that just elite supporting cast kind of made him look better this year.
If McCord had those supporting casts this year, the way he was slinging it in Syracuse, if he had Ohio State's wide receivers.
You mean like having Marvin Harrison Jr. last year in the Mecca?
Yeah, and how many yards? And he ate, and they ate, and he did way better against Michigan last year. I'm
on record saying
he threw 2 interceptions versus Michigan last year as well. Them scoring 23 points does not mean he had a much better game.
Different Michigan team last year, bro.
Yeah, amazing Michigan, national champion Michigan team last year. This is a 6-5 Michigan team. Y'all put up 10 points against. You can't argue this anymore.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, I can because I think play calling played a big factor. Played a big factor in it. If you go through and you put training, and I'm not comparing them. I'm not comparing them as players. I'm comparing them as stylistically. If you put training wheels on Josh Allen, what does the offense look like? The offense looks like a turd on the field, and that's essentially what they tried to do. Will Howard is a guy who we know for a fact he's going to turn the ball over at some point. He tries to force passes in the windows that necessarily aren't there, but he's also a guy that can give you the explosive play. Why are you not trying to throw deep on that Michigan team? When they went to the hurry up offense, the no huddle offense towards the end of the first half there, they went down the field and they scored. They threw 3 passes to Jeremiah Smith, and actually it was 4 passes to Jeremiah Smith. Two of them completed. One with the pass interference, and then the fourth one ultimately ended up being a touchdown on that drive. I think this was malpractice from the Ohio State coaching staff. Obviously, Will Howard did not play well in that game. I think that was his worst game of the entire season. I think two things can be true there. But with that said, I think play calling was a big factor in it. You don't want to limit a guy like Will Howard when ultimately that's what you brought him in for. Last year, Kyle McCord was afraid to go after the big time play, and that's ultimately what hurt them. I think you brought in Will Howard to be, one, dynamic with his legs, and then 2, be a guy that's going to stretch the field when you have receivers like you do. Like Bill said, running directly at the 2 best players on Michigan's defense was coaching malpractice. Mason Graham is going to win his matchups against your second string center and your third string
That's true. It's not even like you had your starting offensive line either.
Exactly. So it's like, what are you thinking about here? I think Jim Harbaugh, honestly, I think he broke Ryan Day in this game. The comments about being born on third base, and then just in general about the team not being tough. You saw it last year in the game against Notre Dame, and he's right after the game, he's like, I want to know where Lou Holtz is at. This is a tough football team. Like, I think it's been ingrained in his mind that he has to prove that this is a tough football team that wins by, rushing the ball. And even in the Penn State game, they ended the game with 11 straight runs, which was awesome to see. But even from then, this is not the same offensive line that you even had against Penn State. So I just think it was a lot of ego in this game. And, I think if they would have, I'm okay with even them running the ball. Try to get it more outside. Make Michigan's linebackers flow. Like, make them think. Don't let Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant ultimately be one-on-one and just block shed and make plays. Like, that's just never going to work in your favor. I think Ohio State did an awful job of playing right into Michigan's plans there. Like, I don't think Michigan would have ever expected that kind of game plan to come from Ohio State. And when it happened, they're like, oh, they came down to our territory. Well, we're going to win this. They want to play on our playground. We're going to win this. Like, we don't care that we're in Columbus. If this is going to be a game of tough defenses and just running the ball up the middle until something breaks, we're going to have a shot to win this one. So I think Ohio State dropped the ball big time.
Can I ask you this? Do you think with Howard throwing that early pick, the really bad one, on the sideline that, really just pretty much gifted us the first touchdown, do you think all of a sudden they were like, hey, we're not running these 3 plays now? Do you think that got them scared early?
The only reason why I say no is because after that, when they went on that hurry up drive, they were letting him throw the ball down the field like as much as he wanted to. So I think it was really, they went in with hey, we're going to not only beat this Michigan team, we're going to beat them at their own ball game. We have something to prove. For whatever reason, we have something to prove in this one. I will tell you right now, I don't give a damn how you do it. You go out, you win that football. I don't care if you never ran the ball one time. You ran screens the entire game. If you win that football game, hey, we're a tougher football team than you because we won this football game. Like, that's all you need there. You don't have to prove by just running up and down right through the A gap that, hey, our guys are going to get off the line. And so that's not where your advantage is. Like, and I think as a coaching staff, they realize that now because everybody is scrutinizing them. And obviously we see the result, but I don't know why it takes these kinds of losses for the coaches to realize that they don't have to be conservative, because this has been a continuous trend. We talked about it on the show last year, and then just in general, previous years, talking about Ryan Day. I think Ryan Day coaches his best games after a loss and after he gets time to prepare. You look at that college football, playoff game against Georgia. I know they lost that game to Georgia, but that was honestly one of Ryan Day's best coach like offenses I've ever seen.
Fair.
I mean, he came out super aggressive. They were, not scared of throwing the ball deep against a Georgia defense that was really good. If you come out, I'm not saying you have the exact same game plan, but if you come out with a similar game plan to that versus Michigan, we're not having the discussion that we're having right now because Michigan just didn't, without Will Johnson at least, Michigan didn't have the guys to compete with you on the outside. But instead, you went down to Michigan's level. You played the dirty game in the trenches there. Your defensive line was playing great. You were fine there. You were showing you were tough defensively. Offensively, you did not have to go down, try to run the ball through Michigan's face to have success when you had the advantage on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, like if you tell me again, and to not harp on this, but like the defense has kind of been, I would say, more of the bigger issue the last 3 years, if we're being honest. If you tell me before the game, like, hey, you guys are scoring 13, I'm like, oh, we're getting railroaded. Like, there's no way we're winning this game 13-10. Like, none. Like, so I mean, yeah, I mean, their defense. I think their defense played great. I mean, again, obviously it's a very limited, offensive package, whatever you want to call it. And the one was pretty much gift wrapped because of it was almost a pick six. Honestly, we got the ball in like the one, but it's just wild, man. That game broke perfectly for Michigan. I will gladly take the win 4 in a row. And I think the next 2 years are kind of toss ups because I think both teams are losing a lot. It's going to be very interesting to see what the game looks like next year.
If Ryan Day is there, Michigan wins by 50.
Well, I mean, I
can't wait till Ohio State's done for the season and I can hear Cottrell go off on how crappy of a coach Ryan Day is and who he wants to replace him. I'm so pumped for that.
I don't think you're going to hear that. I think you're going to hear maybe they need to move on. I don't think you're going to hear him say he's a crappy coach. And quite honestly, I don't think he's a crappy coach. I think I get it, man. But like at the same time, you got to realize
standards are standards. That's all.
Standards are standards, and Harbaugh started 0-5 against them. And
Kirby Smart is currently 1-6 versus Bama. Like, yeah, you only get over that hump. Harbaugh got over that hump. He won a national championship.
Yep.
Kirby got over that hump. He won a national championship. The only saving grace for Ryan is win a national championship. If he does not do that, you will hear me talk about how I want a new coach. I won't say he's a bad coach. He's not the coach for our program because our standards are either beating Michigan and winning a national championship or just flat out beating Michigan. We still want to have success in the playoffs, but you have to at minimum beat Michigan. And thirdly, if you're not going to beat Michigan, you better go win a national championship because those are the only 3 things that lead to a successful season at Ohio State.
Beating Michigan buys you a lot more time, and vice versa. If you're going 10-1, but you're beating Michigan every year, and then you go to the playoff and win one game and lose, it keeps a lot of people in check. Versus, it's if you lose to them 4 in a row, and especially this one's unforgivable. I mean, again, losing last year I think was one thing. I think Michigan was just far and away the best team in the country last year. And
you lose to a national champion, you get a free.
Correct.
You know correct. I mean?
You don't get a freebie, but
it's forgiven.
You don't get the pitchforks. That's
you don't get. I'll give you that. You don't get pitchforks. You may get an angry fist wave, but you don't get pitchforks.
But
all I know is if Ohio State wins the national championship this year, Bill and I are still gonna be happy because we whipped you.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're going to be happy because you're used to having moral victories as an Oregon fan.
Yeah,
listen. Bill could still be happy because he won last year.
Cherry on top for me was last week. There's nothing. I enjoyed the ride up to this part, fully expecting them to lose last week, and then I really have to look towards next year. Them winning now, making it 4 in a row.
That's the part that eats me alive, honestly. Like all the Michigan fans, like. They had an awful season this year. Like, obviously, we thought it was going to be a step back for them, but like, if they finish the year 6-6 and lose to us, it's like, all right, we knew this was coming. Like, we just won last year, no big deal. Like, they would have been. They already had accepted it, but the fact they get another year to just bask in the glory, no bowl game matters to them. Like, there's no way for us to get this back. Like, at least in the previous years, like we lost to Michigan. Like seeing them lose to TCU, like that, like made me happy. I was rooting for them to win because I want to see the national championship game, you know, if we had beaten Georgia. But then just seeing them lose in the playoff and us still having a chance to move forward, like that gave me joy. This year, there is no possible joy to come out of this outcome. I just have to hold this for the next 365 days until we get to the matchup again next year, unless we win a national championship this year.
True. All right, let's go. You know, I don't think, you know, South Carolina Clemson was very ho hum. South Carolina kind of really turned it on in the fourth quarter, clamped down on Clemson's defense, which went away like it has for streaks this year. Late turnover, really late bad turnover for Clemson sealed it. South Carolina wins. Got no love from the committee. You know, not that they were going to get it anyway, but that is definitely a team storing the old back pocket for next year because I think they bring a lot back. So we'll see.
They
what
also had a
happens
great
with the
recruiting
portal.
class.
They did.
Had a lot of top names too.
See what happens with the portal, and as long as they don't lose anybody big, South Carolina's gonna be a very good football team next year. And then we'll go down to Texas A&M. I would say a very unentertaining game.
Yeah,
I thought this game was going to be a lot different. I don't know how you guys felt about it. Kind of a very just blah football game. Texas prevails. A&M officially, I know that was Cottrell's baby from the get-go. They are officially, the fork has been stuck in them. Dead and buried. But I don't know. The Syracuse-Clemson game is really not relevant at all because SMU is going now. But that game didn't matter because it's not an ACC game. And then Texas kind of just still is where they were. And again, the only thing that really changes in that game is A&M is done. So whatever outside chance they had still. But let's get into previews.
yes.
Let's break these games down.
We want to start in both?
Start wherever you want, brother.
Ooh.
Iowa State, Arizona State. This is being played at Jerry World, I believe, in Dallas. Again, we just talked about South Carolina, and we've talked about South Carolina a lot on this show the last month and a half because they've been hot. If you're going with the second hottest team in the country, it's probably Arizona State. They came out of kind of the mid-pack, won 5 or 6 games in a row, beat BYU, have a couple other ranked wins, and they're playing really good football. Iowa State was one of the teams I think that separated themselves early in the year, and they had that lull in the middle of the season. They kind of won a couple of really ugly games, and then they lost to a kind of very mediocre Texas Tech team that kind of really took the control out of their own destiny out of their hands. Needed help to get in final day, and they did. This is an intriguing matchup. I think Arizona's playing better football. Arizona State's playing better football. Iowa State's it's just that tough, just grind you down team though. I think the higher the score goes in this game, the more it favors Arizona State. I think this is a low scoring, like I said, kind of defensive battle, kind of 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I think that favors Iowa State. I don't know what you guys think. Like I said, give me your thoughts, opinions, give me your picks.
Yeah, I mean, I look, as a Pac-12 guy, ever seen Arizona State in this game, I was instantly on the Arizona State Sun Devil bandwagon. I want to see a former Pac-12 school kind of take over a new conference and really show and have success. And then they lost wide receiver Jordan Tyson, who's an 1,100-yard receiver for Arizona State's offense. That's a huge weapon. And really, without him, it kind of turns Arizona State's offense into kind of a more one-dimensional animal. With Cam Scatabo, in the backfield, 6.5 yards per carry this season. So like I said, I've been on Arizona State's coattail this week, and then I just kept getting signs. Like, for example, the injury that kind of took Arizona State down a notch in my book. And then I was realizing Iowa State is the only school in the country, or it's the only college team in the country that has 2 1,000-yard receivers. And like I said, and for me, I think Iowa State's defense was actually underrated. And I think they were ranked 15th in the country right now as an overall defense. That is not talked about. I think Iowa State actually goes into this game, I think takes care of business. As hot as Arizona State's been, I think not having a weapon on the outside, a 1,000-yard receiver on the outside, I think is going to kind of really narrow their game plan. I think Iowa State's going to be able to capitalize on that. Arizona State's going to run the ball down Iowa State's throat. Iowa State's defense is just going to load the box up and get a lot of stops today. I think this is actually going to be a lower scoring game, but I think it's going to be like a 24-14 Iowa State wins by 10.
So, I mean, I don't ever want to count out a Matt Campbell team. Obviously, we know how good of a coach Matt Campbell is. No one expected Iowa State to be here at this point in the year. I mean, on the flip side of that, no one expected Arizona State to be here as well. You know, none of us had either of these two teams going to the Big 12 championship game in our preseason predictions. But with that said here, I'm rolling with Arizona State. You know, I think Arizona State just having the consistency of the run game, I think is going to be huge in this one. And I also think that with Dillingham, you know, he's shown that he can really inspire this bunch. And I do think losing Tyson's going to be huge for him on the outside, but also think they're going to just still find a way to win here. I think this Iowa State team is, granted, you know, they're here, like they've done enough to make it here. But I just think the trajectory of how Arizona State has been playing the past, you know, month and a half of the season there, like Bill mentioned, you know, if it's not South Carolina's the hottest team, Arizona State definitely can, you know, have some claim to that stake as well. So I just think Arizona State continues to keep it moving here, and they ultimately get, you know, that automatic berth to the college football playoff there. And I think it's truly wild that, you know, just looking at it in general here from a holistic standpoint, you have an opportunity where a Pac-12 school wins the Big 12, a Pac-12 school wins the Big 10, what were they last year? An American school wins the ACC with SMU, and then a Big 12 school winning the SEC with, you know, Texas, if they were to take the crown in that one. And I think for me, it's interesting to say that part out loud, because all we hear about is this SEC bias and what schools deserve to be in, what schools don't deserve to be in, you know, how good these schools are based on their conference and things like that. I think it's just wild and just kind of goes to show you where we are right now in the college football landscape, in the fact that, yes, the SEC top to bottom and just in general, like holistically, they probably are the deepest conference, but that doesn't mean they're the best conference. I think you still have top teams, you know, obviously from the Big 10, but like even seeing Texas, and I know Texas is a big name brand, but seeing Texas go over from the Big 12, and, you know, we saw how they only won the Big 12, I think, once since 2005. And then they go over in their second year and win the SEC. Like that's crazy to me. So, I mean, I think just looking at that should change, at least that should change the mindset of SEC is just going to dominate some of these other programs, because clearly you look at the landscape of it, they're not even winning their own conference, you know, just from the historic standpoint this season.
It's well said. Yes, it's a good point. It's a deep thought. Damn.
So you think Arizona State's winning? Bill, you think Arizona State's winning?
I'm going Arizona State.
All right. Iowa State it is. Let's go.
All
right. SMU Clemson. This is what this game boils down to for me. And I said it on Wednesday. I think as long as SMU shows up, I think they play a good game and they don't get too tight and they don't get too nervous and, you know, and pucker up with what the moment is here. I think if they can settle in the game early, I just think they're better. I think they're better in every aspect of the game. I think they win. You saw Clemson's offense again last week. I think Clemson was up in that game 10-0 at one point and then scored a field goal for the last 2.5 quarters. It just goes away. I think SMU is going to be able to run the ball. I think they're going to be able to throw the ball. Like I said, if they can get in the game and just get settled and just, you know, relax and start playing, I like SMU, and I kind of like SMU big, if I'm being honest. I got the same feeling about this game as I did with Boise last night. Spread's really small. I think if SMU does their thing, I think SMU wins them by double digits. I'm fairly confident in SMU tonight. This game is going to be played in North Carolina, I believe.
Yeah,
this is the one that goes Panther Stadium. Yeah, Charlotte. So not going to be a home game for anybody. A little bit easier for Clemson to get there, obviously, but I will be pretty rest assured that I'm sure a lot of SMU fans are making this trip, being their first year in the ACC and making it to the championship game. So I'm hoping SMU wins. I want SMU in the playoff badly, and I feel like if they lose, the committee's going to find a way to screw them. So I am full on board the SMU Mustang train for tonight.
Hey, look, I've been on the SMU Mustang train since the beginning of the season. I picked SMU versus Miami in the ACC championship game, and I was one choke job away from getting that prediction to happen today. But of course, Mario Cristobal, or as Justin likes to call him, Luigi Cristobal, messed everything up for me with 2 late season losses. Yeah, I know you guys thought he would. I had more hope that Cam Ward was going to be able to bypass those bad coaching decisions, and I was wrong. He did give his best efforts, but no, SMU. Like I've been high on SMU all year. The only thing that worries me about this game when it comes to this SMU versus Clemson is that this might be one of the fastest defenses they've seen all season. They play a lot of man-to-man. Jennings has beaten man-to-man all year. Jennings got his first start last year in the AAC championship game when Preston Stone broke his leg, and the history's been written since then. He was thrown for just under 3,000 yards this season, only 8 interceptions. He's really taking care of the ball, and frankly, SMU is just taking care of business. Besides that early loss to BYU by 3 points, when BYU was really playing top-notch, amazing football, they've been absolutely flawless this season. Their closest game was to Louisville, which was a 7-point win, and the Duke 1-point win. Other than that, they've absolutely blown everybody out of the water. They got the 19th ranked scoring defense, 6th ranked offense. Everything is pointing towards SMU winning this game. However, I do believe that Clemson and that the fact that they have won 8 straight ACC championship games, Dabo Swinney is experienced in these situations. He's going to throw everything, including the kitchen sink at SMU. I think this game is going to be very close. I think this game is actually going to be on the lower scoring. I do think SMU does win this game. I do think it's closer. I think this is more like a 24-20 type game. I think Clemson finds a way to keep this game close. I think SMU covers that 2.5-point spread. I think Clemson has a chance to win at the end of the game. Like I say, Dabo's a better coach. He's been in these situations, and SMU is really the upside of them is that they don't know the situation, so they're really going to play free with nothing to lose because they know they have to win this game. So I'm picking SMU, but I think Clemson keeps it close.
I'm rolling with SMU here. I think if SMU plays their brand of football, they win this game rather comfy. You look at the way SMU has played this season, they've really been a team of consistency. There really hasn't been, that one game where it's like, oh, maybe SMU is a team full of frauds here. I know they had the OT win, ultimately over Duke in that one, but that Duke team was, one of the good teams in the ACC there. And, obviously they weren't a team that was considered for the college football playoff, and they haven't been ranked at all this year, but that's a 9-3 football team. Like that was a good football team. And with that being really your only scare since you've made the move to Jennings as your quarterback, I think that says a lot. And I look at it on the flip side of things with that Clemson team. They've had a lot of games where either they were begging to get beat or they actually did end up getting beat. I look at their game against Louisville and I'm like, that's a team that's a game you shouldn't have lost. And then, even to compound that, later on in the year, obviously we've seen the South Carolina game, like Bill mentioned, they had control in that one. And then the offense really just went dormant. I do think that's a good South Carolina team. So, I don't want to just bash them for that. But, I just think that just goes to show you, how inconsistent that Clemson team can be. Not to mention the game against Pitt, where I think Kate Klubnik in the QB draw, ultimately saved them, which is a great play for them. But Pitt really almost won that football game there. So I think SMU in general is just a better football team, and they're more consistent on offense, and that's what I need in a game like this. I do think Clemson's defense, to Alex's point, will be flying around, and it may be an adjustment at first. Maybe they come off a little timid, or, the offensive line comes off a bit slow, and, you start to see some penetration, things like that. But I also think you can kind of start to game plan for that. SMU has, a set of great coaches there, and they know, I'm sure, just like we know, those guys are going to be screaming off edge and things like that. Maybe you get more screens involved. Maybe you just get more in the quick game and things like that. So I just think if SMU plays their brand of football, they're going to be able to take care of business against this Clemson team. and I think it'll be a pretty handed victory there.
I'm really upset though that this game is on at the exact same time as the Oregon Penn State game. Like every other game has its own time slot. You tell me you couldn't have put them at different. I mean,
They do it. They do it every year. The ACC plays the same time as the Big Ten every year. Like even the SEC is like, all right, you guys are going to play at 8. We'll play at 3:30. Like
I don't know what's so hard to figure out. 12, 3, 6, 9.
Yeah,
it's not hard. It's not hard.
But yeah, so I'm irritated. I'm gonna be flipping because obviously I love SMU, but obviously be focused on the Ducks. I hope SMU can pull it out.
You're not flipping nothing. You're gonna have the Oregon game on the TV. You might throw the SMU game on the phone. That channel is not getting changed off of the Oregon Ducks. Who are you kidding?
Right. I'm trying to be unbiased.
Yeah, all right. You can't fool me.
Hey, you know what Bill said earlier? How you guys stay unbiased. I am the opposite of that. All right, I will list 13 reasons why. I will pick Oregon over the New England Tom Brady-led New England Patriots. Like I will ride or die. Everyone else I'll be impartial of, but if it involves our 3 teams, you guys are losing. I'm winning. That's all there is to it.
I'll tell you what. Just to go off that slight segue, I will say this, Alex. 2 years from now, as it sits right now, I can say I think Oregon is going to be the national champions in 2026. I think you guys are going to have the best roster in college football. I love the recruiting class and throw that out there for you. Obviously, a lot can change with how the portal works, but
see, I hate that you said that because now in 2 years you can be like, oh, well, I called the Oregon was going to be good. But then if they sucked, you could be like, ha, Oregon sucks.
I mean, I'll say ha. I'll say ha, but it will still hurt a little bit for me. Bill will tell you firsthand. I told Bill back when we first started the show in 2020, I was like, 2023 was going to be the year where I was like, all our chips are on the table. Like if we don't win the national championship, then I don't know when our window is going to be. And the only reason why I said that is because all the guys that end up coming back this year, I thought were going to be going to the NFL. So it really just gave me just a buffer. So it's really 2024 because they all came back. But I was the first one. I knew 4 years ago that this is the window. I mean, granted, we're still going to be good, but this window, the last 2 years, last 3 years really, was the window to capture a national championship. And I told Bill that back in 2020. So I'll be realistic with how I feel moving forward.
Well, I'll feel good about you saying that then.
I will say what I told you, both of you gentlemen, in the chat the other night. I will be shocked I would say I would be shocked in 3 years if somebody on the show is not the national champion.
That's true. We already got you knocked out. We just got to get me knocked out next.
No, I'm talking about one of the three of us will win the national championship that year.
Okay.
I would be absolutely shocked with what we'll have on the field as juniors and seniors at that point. Same with Ohio State and Oregon. I would be shocked if one of the 3 of us does not win the national championship in 3 years.
Yeah, that being Jeremiah's junior year. That'd be fun. I'd be fun.
I'd be with that.
With that said, let's go over to 2 teams that we know are also going to be well within the mix here for at least the next couple years as well.
Georgia versus Texas. It's a pretty much home game for Georgia, as it always is. I mean, because God forbid they have to travel anywhere.
Right.
This is going to be played in Mercedes-Benz Superdome in Atlanta.
Superdome.
Texas will obviously be very well represented, though. Their fans travel very well.
Yep.
I said this on Wednesday, and I'm still kind of stuck on it. If I knew what version of either one of these teams I was getting, it would be easier to pick. If I'm getting the good Georgia team, I think Georgia's a good shot to win. I still really don't know kind of what the ceiling of this Texas team is because they just really haven't played anybody or gotten pushed. And then obviously, they played once this year, and we already know the outcome of that game. This is, if I'm being completely honest, I think this is the toss-up game of the 4, in my opinion. We'll talk about the Big Ten last. I think that game can go certain ways, but I think I know how that game is going to go. I'm gonna go Georgia here. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's because I know they don't. The kids aren't driving to the game. Is it?
Savage.
I'm just not. I've been on the same boat with this all year, and me and Cottrell have both kind of been on. I'm just not sold on what Texas is. I just haven't seen it week in, week out. Like you listen to some people talk about this Texas team, and they're like, oh, they're undoubtedly the favorite to win the national championship. They have the highest ceiling, and I continue to ask the same question. Like, show it to me. Like where? Like what are you watching that makes you say that? Like what is this? Extremely efficient, don't turn the ball over, like great offense, great. Like show me that game. Did I miss it? Like show it to me. And nobody can. My problem is Georgia looks great for 2 quarters at a time, and then they look like Georgia State for 2 quarters at a time. Like I said, just for shits and giggles and straight, I think it really shakes stuff up tomorrow night if they win. I'm going Georgia in a close one.
So here's a couple things. Obviously, the first time they played, Georgia handled business. Texas had a little bit of a second half push, but essentially that game was never really in doubt. That also was Quinn Ewers' second game back after missing some time. He played obviously the week before against Oklahoma, and then playing against Georgia. He just didn't look like the Quinn Ewers that we're used to seeing. But here's the other side of that same coin. Georgia won that game by 15 points, and Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions, not 1 touchdown. Dude was a turnover machine, and Texas still couldn't turn those 3 turnovers into anything substantial to make that a game. I don't think anything is different here. I think that obviously Georgia basically playing a home game. I think, Quinn Ewers did not look great last week either. I think they're going to have to throw in some packages with Arch Manning, kind of like they did what was it, last week, 2 weeks ago? They had Arch Manning running. Yeah, it was last week when they had that awesome rollout and dive for the touchdown. Amazing play, by the way. But I think they need to have more of those packages with Arch in there to kind of mix things up a little more. They don't have a great rushing attack right now. I think Arch kind of gives them that mobility aspect that Quinn also offers, but obviously you want to protect him a little bit as he's had some injury issues this year. I think Georgia takes care of business. Obviously, Texas is going to make the college football playoff. But the way Georgia won last time, and they didn't even play anywhere close to their best ball, and they handled that game by two scores. I think it is a little bit close, but I still think Georgia wins this game.
Yeah, and I think ultimately for me, the big thing is going to come down to, can Texas capitalize on Carson Beck's mistakes? Alex, that's a great point that you brought up with the 3 interceptions and no touchdowns. And I think the way Georgia's looked really the past month and a half, 2 months, Carson Beck is damn near guaranteed to give you at least 2. And so I think that Texas coming in knowing that, it's like, hey, we got to find ways to capitalize on that. And I will say as well, Texas's defense kind of showed me a lot last week against A&M. I'm not saying A&M has like the best offense in the world or anything like that, but it felt like there kept being moments in that game that was supposed to turn to Texas A&M's side. They got the interception, the pick 6 there. They had the fumble that, landed deep in Texas territory. And the defense stepped up and they kept them out the end zone and kept points off the board there. And I think that's going to be the recipe to success this week. Texas defense is going to have, bend but not break mentality there. And if you can force 2 to 3 turnovers, you have to put points up on the board. And I think that game for, you talk about it being Quinn's second game back. They tried to put Arch in for just some motivation and just to spark a fire. And then he
for halftime, yeah,
turning the ball over as well. But that was his first game, like first time in a game with big implications, against a really good team. So I think that can even be a learning lesson for Arch, because we know he's going to get some snaps tonight. Like this, I think you have to give him some snaps to keep him dynamic with the offense there. I think Texas learns from their mistakes in that first game. And I'll go out on my ledge here, against both of you guys and pick the Longhorns to capture an SC championship tonight. I really think it's going to be Carson Beck's going to be the reason why Texas wins this football game. I think he gives you 2 to 3 turnovers there. And, ultimately for me as well, I don't like Carson Beck's face. I don't like his face. So I'm a I'm rolling with Texas to smack it.
I feel that. I
was not expecting that at all. That was not what I was expecting to come out of your mouth. I just don't like his face.
Little personal hate there. It's all right though.
Jeez,
You get sometimes. But let's go to the grand finale here.
The one that matters.
Very punchable face, Justin. Yes, very punchable.
I saw something on Facebook yesterday. It was a picture of Carson Beck on Snapchat. And it's like, you want a picture of this package? And it's like, someone's got to tell Carson Beck to stop Snapchatting.
I saw those. All these girls got together and he's all the snaps of him like being
shirtless
and trying to be
yeah. Isn't he dating one of the Von Lith twins?
He's no.
Or something like that.
He is. He is. Not Von Lith.
No, but the one of the Miami twins.
Yeah. The Cavender twins.
Cavender twins.
Yeah, then he's just getting busted on Snapchat. So dude needs to focus on football and less on Snapchat. Well, what was he said in the media the other day, that he doesn't watch football for fun, which what he said made total sense, but people were just dragging him. He's like, I don't watch football for fun because I spend the whole time analyzing it instead of just enjoying it. And people were like, wow, this dude sucks if he's watching football for fun. Like, what do you mean?
I don't think so. That makes sense.
I think that's a great answer. I have no problem with that answer.
I think it's weird, but whatever. Not even just as him. I think that's weird.
Honestly, I think he's just kind of a weird, quirky dude who's just kind of been thrust in the spotlight because he's the starting quarterback for one of the best teams in the country. I just don't think he's that naturally outgoing, charismatic guy. And when you kind of try to force those kids to be something they're not, I think you get weird stuff like that sometimes.
That was weird.
But that being said, here we go. Penn State Nittany Lions, Oregon Ducks, Indianapolis. Enjoy your first trip to Indianapolis, Alex.
Thank you. Even though the duck was there earlier in the year for Big Ten Media Day with a big inflatable duck, that duck better be back in town.
I think it's gonna be a hell of a football game. And I say this for a couple of reasons.
Best game of the day.
I agree. I agree with that. And that's not slighting Oregon. I think this game has the best two teams, and I think this game has the best kind of in-game matchup. Kind of who's going to play chess better. I think both units match up well with what the other one wants to do. I think if Penn State, if they can run the ball. If you look at the teams that have given Oregon a little bit of trouble or, kind of slowed them up, it's teams that can run the ball and stay on the field. Obviously Boise State did it and they're elite at it, obviously with Genty. Ohio State ran the ball very well against Oregon. I actually think they got away from the run too much at the end. And then, Michigan gave them a decent, 2.5 quarters because they were successful running the ball. Obviously, Oregon wants to get on the field, run, throw the ball around, score a bunch of points, and score fast. The biggest way you curtail that is not let the offense on the field. So, I think Penn State is equipped to do that. And then obviously defensively, I think Penn State has the ability to, again, I'm not going to say stop because that's craziness, but I think Penn State has the ability to at least slow down Oregon and make them work for touchdowns even more. So again, I think this is going to be a hell of a football game. The thing that always concerns me when Penn State is a big football game is their doofus head coach. If you're asking me to pick between the two of them, I know Dan Lanning kind of got outcoached a little bit last year, in those two Washington games. But again, it was against Kellen DeBoer and a very good Washington team. I'm taking Dan Lanning over James Franklin all day here and twice on Sunday. That's what gives me a little bit of hesitation here. But that being said, I think all the ingredients are there. Maybe not for the actual outright upset, but I think you see the spread being 3.5. I think it's there for a reason. I think this is a very close football game. I think this comes down to the fourth quarter. I think we're in for a hell of a game tonight. I'm excited to watch it. I'm a little jealous that I don't have the nervous because, Michigan's not in it. I think, Al or Cottrell would agree the same. But it's going to be fun just to sit back and watch this with no horse in the race tonight and just watch a good football game.
Must be nice.
And a little part of me will be, it's tough because a little part of me is pulling for Gene and a little part of me is pulling for Alex here. Because it would be really funny to watch Gene have really ride Penn State all the way through this year, like he has so far. But that being said,
they made it easy to follow him all year.
Well, listen, Gene jumps off the Penn State wagon very easily. Doesn't
usually
take him
it's
much.
the loss to Ohio, the yearly loss to Ohio State.
Usually it's week 7. Yeah.
That's when you build in the Gene off the. And he jumped off, but he had an inflatable, so he stayed alive and got.
He jumped off, but like his shirt kind of got stuck, so he's kind of like half dragging along, half trying to get back on. It's true. Like week 7 or week 8. Gene has the eject button in his hand. He's just waiting.
Ejectocito, cuz.
Exactly. Exactly what it is. And then it's just a matter of is you're going to get a lot of Texas talk or a lot of Georgia talk or whoever else he backed, decided to back at the beginning of the year. So, listen, I'm going to be obviously happy for one of the two of you. I just hope it's a good football game. I think it's going to be. I'll get into this in a little bit and pick them, but I think we're in for a hell of a game tonight.
Control, I'm gonna let you go because I might.
Yeah, you go last. I
might get a little carried away.
All right, look. So I'm not picking this game for pick'em, so I'll just give it to you guys straight here. I think stylistically, I think these two match up phenomenally. I think with what Penn State wants to do on the defensive side with Abdul Carter getting after the passer, I think he can make Dylan Gabriel very uncomfortable. With that said, I still think with Oregon's ability to hit the big play. Is going to factor in huge in this game. I do think Penn State will rely heavily on the run, but I also think Oregon's going to make similar to how they did with Ohio State. Ohio State had success in the running game, but Oregon didn't let that break them, in that game there. They said, hey, if you want to take your shots on us, you're going to have to go vertical. You're going to have to take care of business against us in the passing game. I think you're going to see a lot of similarities in that kind of mindset against this Penn State team. So ultimately for me, I'm going to go with a team who I think has more big play and explosive capabilities there. And I'm rolling with Oregon to win the Big Ten here.
Yeah,
like I said earlier, I think this is going to be the best game of the evening. But I think Oregon wins a tight one, and they take care of business over Penn State here. And Alex, to answer your question before you go, it feels absolutely awful. But the only thing that I can sit back and hope for and look forward to is the national championship.
And that's fantastic. And you guys both keep saying this is going to be the game of the day. And I don't see that. I think the game of the day is going to be the first game of the day, which is Arizona State versus Iowa State. This game is honestly, the spread says 3.5, but the spread should be more like 10. Because Penn State, they're going to try to run the ball, keep the ball out of Oregon's hands. However, Oregon has one of the best defensive fronts in the country. They showed that many times this season already. Penn State, their main receiving weapon is their tight end, Tyler Warren, who is a fantastic athlete, by the way. I will take a 0 from him. However, Oregon has this guy. He plays linebacker. He also plays center field for the baseball team. He was also drafted in the Major League Baseball draft. His name is Bryce Botcher. That dude is an absolute coverage beast, and he will be on him like white on rice the entire game. I wouldn't be surprised if Warren has less than 50 yards receiving this game. I said it there. I said it. Then, now, on the offensive side of the ball, Oregon is going to run the offense they've been running all season long. Quick outs, deep, and then deep bomb to follow it up. Evan Stewart's going to have over 100 yards receiving today and 2 touchdowns. Dylan Gabriel is going to throw for over 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. And this game is not even going to be close. It's going to be a 31-14 game. Oregon is absolutely going to roll Penn State today. It is not even close. The fact that it's a 3.5 point spread and you guys seem to think this is going to be the best game of the day, that's why I said I'm going to be switching between SMU and this game, because this game's going to be over by half.
Bill, I saw this. I've seen this movie before.
Same.
Like both of you when I said it.
No, I'm talking about in the championship game. We were quite literally here last year, Pac-12 championship game.
That's
and
different though.
You did beat both of us, and I will give you credit for that. You also said you were going to beat us by double digits, and that to my
Michigan, I did.
You said that for Ohio State, and it was 1 point.
And we should have with your 7-point touchdown. That was the touchdown at the beginning of the first drive. That should have been 4th down. You guys should have punted. And then we made some, stupid 4th down calls. So we should have, You'll see when we play again.
It was a 1-point game, but
right. But
I'm just saying,
it should have been a lot more.
I mean, if they don't call OPI, we kick a field goal, win the game. But regardless, we could do if, ands, buts, whatever.
If Will Howard wasn't your quarterback, you might have won that game.
I just think that thinking that you're going to just go in and score 31 points on Penn State is kind of insane there. But
insane. I mean, are you serious right now? USC dropped 30 points on them. Freaking Minnesota dropped 26 on them. Like, what do you mean? And Bowling Green dropped 27 points on this Penn State defense, and you don't think Oregon can score 31? Get out of here!
They're only going to score 14. I just
oh my
don't.
God!
I don't see that happening.
Your defense, Ohio State's defense, held them to 13 points. Oregon's defense is right on that same exact level as Ohio State, and you don't think that they can hold them to 14 points? You are out of this. You're out of your mind. Let's move on to the next. Let's go. And
I saw Wisconsin. If we're doing that, I saw Wisconsin score 13, and I saw Boise State score 34. So,
yeah. And guess what? Ashton Genty and Boise State is in the college football playoff.
And Penn State is ranked ahead of them.
Only because of their conference. Only because of their conference. How dare you?
Ohio State's also ranked ahead of them, and they scored 31.
Only because of their conference.
Alex, I would say this. You need to learn to be more quietly confident. Like, just be like,
when
my
I'm
team's
right,
good. This is what I do. This is what we do well. We're gonna win. Like, not be like, we're gonna win 49-12. And like,
when I said 31-13, and when you see the score, you will see
you onto your team.
I'm just saying,
where's the bad juju? 12-0, number one team of the nation. Where's this bad juju?
Where was it last year? What was it last year?
Winning is winning. Obviously, trumps all. But I'm just saying, we knew they were going to beat. We knew they were going to beat that Michigan team. The Ohio State game.
We knew Ohio State was going to beat that Michigan team too, didn't we?
It's rivalry games are so much different than
Ohio State's
Oregon. Oregon does not have a rivalry with Michigan. We talked about it with the Civil War games, and we've seen Oregon State beat Oregon. It's not a new rivalry. This is
about to be.
3 times you guys have played. Third time you guys have played each other. Like, it's not a rivalry.
Now it's going to be
all right. I'm going to have to start calling you New Michigan State. That's what you're about to be.
Ooh, little brother.
You're New Michigan State here. You just want to come in and make your way into the rivalry.
2 times that they've played us.
In the last 2 times. Hey, you know what we did. You know the last time we beat you. You know when that happened? When it counted. When it counted in the national championship game.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking Florida State. Oh wait, what year was that? Is that
2014?
2014. That's right. I always get those 2 years mixed up between the Florida State and the Ohio State.
Last time you almost won a national championship.
We played Florida State. What was that? 2 years later? No, we played them 2000. It doesn't matter. But no, Oregon's gonna take care of business today. We're getting off track. Oregon's taking care of business today. I get you guys want me to ease on my confidence, but I have studied this game. I like Arizona State, and I picked Iowa State. I am being impartial here. The fact that the spread is as close as it is absolutely insulting. This Penn State offense cannot move the ball in big games, i.e., Ohio State game. This game is going to be very similar, but Oregon's going to have more success offensively than Ohio State did. That's all I'm saying. 31-13, 31-14, whatever the hell I said. That's what I'm standing by.
All right.
All right, let's get into pick 'em.
We're all so close.
Ooh. Yeah, Bills wrapped up.
We're all really close.
1 game apart here. Bills wrapped up the Superdog. So
let's just pick. I think today we should pick all 4. Do you pick them for all 4 of the? Yeah.
Pick your 3 games, and this will be whoever comes out ahead after this week will win the regular season as well. We'll do something separate for bowl season.
All right, who wants to go first?
Bill always does, or I go. We get our 2 out the way, and then we give you some time there.
It's here, so I'll go quick here. I'm taking SMU -2.5 versus Clemson. Like I said, I have the same feeling about that game as I did Boise State last night. I just feel like it's a wider, it's a wider apart game than that. I think SMU gets it done. I think they win by 7 to 10 points. I'm already 1-0 because I took Boise State -3.5 versus UNLV. So I already got that in the bag. And then last but not least, I think Oregon pulls it out late. I think they win. I think Penn State covers. I'm taking the Nittany Lions +3.5.
I'm definitely winning pick 'em this year.
just like Bill, I also have Boise State minus 3.5, so that's already a win for me. Second game, got Arizona State minus 2.5. I really think they take care of business against that Iowa State football team. I just think they're flat out better. And then the last one, I got SMU minus 2.5 versus Clemson. I think that is your blowout of the day per se. Not necessarily saying it gets like too out of hand, but I think that's the largest margin of victory in these Power 4 championship games.
All right, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to go – so I think it's pretty easy for me. I'm going Iowa State covering the 1.5. They're favorites over Arizona State. I think they cover that 1.5. I think Rocco Becht has an absolute phenomenal game today with his 2 outstanding wide receivers on the outside. I think they take care of business. Oregon, obviously that 3.5-point spread is chump change to how bad they're going to beat Penn State. That's my lock of the day is Oregon versus Penn State at 3.5 minus 3.5. And then I'm going to go with Texas, the Texas-Georgia game. Texas is minus 3 on the spread right now. I think Georgia covers that and ultimately wins, but I'm gonna take the points on pick'em. So I'm going Georgia, Oregon, Iowa State covering for my pick'em.
You know what's crazy, Alex? And I know we're about to get off soon here because games are about to start up there. But you know what's wild is that objectively, I want to root for Penn State because I like tradition. I don't want the new guy to just come in and be the Big Ten champion. And I look at it on the flip side of it as an Ohio State fan. I want you guys to win because that gives us the potential to move up in terms of rankings for the college football playoff. So I'm really conflicted here. Either way, I come out happy, but I'm just letting you know that's where I stand with things here, and I'm definitely conflicted on the two.
I think that's the one thing that kind of keeps me excited about today is even if it's not going to happen, but if somehow Penn State does figure out a way to win, I know Oregon's already locked in that college football playoff. So it does take a little bit of the stress off my shoulder where it's last year, whereas the 14 playoff, it would have been a lot more. I would have had a lot more anxiety about today. So I will say I have a little bit more relaxed feeling right now. I'm sure once 4 and 5 o'clock hits, I'm sure that'll change, but I'm pretty relaxed.
It's a win-win for you. You either get to be the Big Ten champion, finish regular season undefeated,
and number one,
and get the number 1 seed, or you get to drop down to the 5 seed, get the easier path to a national championship, and then ultimately go from there. So, I mean, I don't want to say a win-win because you don't want to lose the Big Ten championship.
Right.
But in the grand scheme, it's a win-win.
I don't know if they want to give Boise another crack at it on a neutral field, though. I'm just going to be honest.
True. No, I don't want to. I know the show's almost over here, but people like the big cockheads on ESPN have been saying how Dan Lanning is a coaching mastermind and that he might lose this game on purpose in order to get that 5 seed. And I'm saying that is absolutely not happening. Dan Lanning does not have a lay down and let's lose attitude. So anybody who thinks that that's a possibility, I know we haven't said it. Nobody I know said it. I've been hearing a lot of talk about it. That's not happening today. Oregon is going.
I don't think any coach at that level would purposely.
You'd never be able to look at kids.
No, but it had been talked about.
I know
3 or 4 times on big shows. I was like, where is that coming from? This is a competitive man. Like this Oregon team, like they want to finish undefeated. So like,
I will say this though: say you guys win the Big Ten and he wins the national championship, there's going to be a lot of NFL teams coming to call in.
I don't know if he goes. I think he's happy at college for at least the next few years. I think his aspirations may grow, but I think right now he's pretty happy.
After winning a national championship, there's nothing left to prove.
Yes, there is. Defending national champion, 3-time national champion, 4-time national champion.
That's not stuff to prove though. Like that's getting to the this graphic is perfect. You are literally getting once you get to the top of the mountain. There's nowhere left to go. Like you can
revisit the top a couple times, but it doesn't change. Whereas if you go to win a Super Bowl in the NFL, that's a completely different mountain.
Well, if he goes to the NFL, as long as Will Stein takes over, I'd be happy. The offensive coordinator.
I mean, he's going to get a lot of phone calls. Yeah, correct. He's going to be on the short list for a lot of big jobs.
Well, I can guarantee if Dan Lanning is like, hey, I'm going to take some interviews with NFL, I guarantee Will Stein would be like, cool, Oregon, I will stay here and you just let me know what you do, bro. I'm so happy, though. So much less going on this mountain today. I'm loving it.
Yeah, we just got a zoomed in look here towards the top. We left all the kids in the graveyard, we're letting them rest in peace.
Yeah, and obviously that Boise State UNLV game kind of wrapped up last night. UNLV is officially back at the bottom of the mountain in the graveyard. Boise State, all but essentially, actually, they have virtually clinched their the college football championship berth. And we just got a couple more spots to figure out. Obviously, Indiana, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Tennessee, and Alabama, kind of waiting to see what happens. But we have 3 of 4 great matchups today, and I'm excited to see kind of where they go. No matter who wins or loses, it's gonna be a fantastic college football playoff this year. I'm excited that we're at 12 teams.
I couldn't agree more. Next week, I just don't think people realize how amazing it's going to be next week to have college football playoff games on home campuses. 2 weeks? They have a week off?
Army Navy.
Yeah, Army Navy's next week.
Yeah, 2 weeks. So
that's cool.
It's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be so much fun. But that being said, there's a bunch of big football games today, so we are not going to oversight those. I'm excited to watch them all day, and really be able to dig in and see who plays well and who gets their claim to fame today. And then we are going to be back on tomorrow night, correct? We're doing that for the rankings reveal.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm in. All right, cool. Anybody have anything last? I got one thing to say at the end here.
I have one question for you guys, and Bill, I'm also going to echo your sentiments, which I knew we were going to get to. Real quick, if SMU loses today, do they get in over Bama? Yes or no? I don't know. No explanation. Yes or no? Should they? I think we all can say yes. Do they?
Put the positivity out there. I'm saying yes. I'm saying yes.
I
will be 100% honest. That is the game that I think the committee is worried about the most, because I think that is the hardest justification to do. Like, I think they catch the most heat if SMU loses that game and they don't put them in over Bama. I think that is where they get the most heat. I think the committee is praying that SMU wins tonight. Because it also gives them leeway with the Georgia-Texas situation then too.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I like to say SMU gets in. However, I don't think that they do. I think Bama stays in.
I think we all.
I just said I want SMU in more than anything, more than anyone here. I want SMU in.
We all agree that they should. We all agree that we would want them in. We all agree that they deserve to be in. I'm going to round it out and say I'm 100% with you guys. They would not get in. Bama would get in over them.
That is a borderline bigger travesty than what happened to Florida State last year, if that happens.
I know, and I'm on the same exact page with you. And again, that's where people are going to be like, oh, we need to make the field bigger. That is not the answer. All right. We just need to be able to knock these SEC schools out when they don't belong. We just got to be able to say no. That's really what it all boils down to.
No.
That means no. You gotta get them out. You gotta get them out of that room, though. 80% of that room is Big Ten and SEC.
Well, the Big Ten can stay, but the SEC got to go.
No, I mean SEC. I mean Big Ten. I mean the chair of the committee is Big Ten guy, and he's part of the problem.
Oh, well, never mind then. Get him out of there. Oh, that's right. You were saying that you wanted this guy. Like, we were texting, and this is the guy that you were talking about. Yeah. Okay. You said he was a communist.
I can't stand him. I hate him. Nobody in Michigan likes him either. You go on any fan page, you will not see one person be like, "Yeah, Ward Manuel's awesome." Everybody wants him fired.
Arizona State is driving on Iowa State's 44-yard line. So let's get out of here.
All right, let's get out of here. Last but certainly not least, I do have to give a big shout out. His birthday was yesterday. This guy has been easily our biggest fan, our most consistent fan. He's been here since show number 1. He wakes up at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning every Saturday. He's the first one on the message board every single week. Guy comments on everything. He shares everything. I just want to give a big happy birthday to Justin Louder. Dude has been, like I said, he's the type of people that you need to be with you from the get-go to help build what we're trying to do here. So I hope you had a great birthday yesterday. Hope you have a great weekend this weekend celebrating, and just want to give a happy birthday to my guy, Justin.
Yes, sir. Happy birthday. Even though your wife posted a picture of you at an Oregon State game, I know you may not have been too happy about that. I texted him yesterday. I was like, what's that Oregon State picture doing, bro? But no, happy birthday for sure. And obviously I've known you for damn near almost 30 years now. So I appreciate you being a big fan of the show. And we'll have to talk later because, like I said, we got a big reveal show tomorrow night. And Justin, I think if you're able, we wouldn't mind having you on the show. So let's enjoy some college football today and
absolutely.
See what's in store.
Happy birthday, Justin. Glad it was yesterday because I'd feel really bad rooting against your team on your birthday. So glad we got that out the way there. And obviously appreciate, the consistency with the show and just the love that you have for the show and all of that there. So looking forward to the day that even if it's not tomorrow, I'm looking forward to the day that we can finally get Justin on the show for some talks here.
Absolutely.
All right, boys, enjoy the day. And we will be back here next week with recaps and Army Navy, which is always a special game. Dummy's going to sit up there and play with his all day.
I shouldn't do that.
All right, Steve.
We're out of here.
We gotta go.